who had a story of like 5 suitors for Saquon, the Giants being one of them, the Cowboys being one of them, the Ravens, the Texans, and then the Eagles. And in the article, he talked about how he's hearing from both sides that there's mutual interest. So Saquon had interest in those teams, and the teams also had interest in Saquon. So the Eagles were on there. And Ray and I talked about it pretty quickly yesterday because we know that that's not what the Eagles do, right? The Eagles do not pay big money for Saquon Barkley, right, for running backs. You just look back over the last couple of years. They do draft every once in a while running backs in second rounds, right, with LaShawn McCoy, Miles Sanders. Like, they're not afraid to spend high draft capital on a running back. We don't see it in the first round, but like a second or a third round pick, we've seen the Eagles do. And if it's not a draft pick, it's a trade for a guy in the final year of his deal, right? We saw that with DeAndre Swift last year. We saw it with Jordan Howard a couple of years ago when he was with the Chicago Bears, right? Like, it's something that the Eagles do. Or it's one-year deals for vets, LeGarrette Blount, right? Jay Ajayi, making a trade for him when he was on the final year of his deal midseason with the Miami Dolphins. That's what the Eagles have been doing with the running back position ever since Howie Roseman took over post-Chip Kelly. I mean, the last splashy running back signing for the Eagles was DeMarco Murray, and it just completely didn't work. Now, part of it was a Chip Kelly run offense, and they were trying to have DeMarco Murray, who was more of a north and south runner, run east to west, right? Sideline to sideline. That wasn't his style of play. So no shock it didn't work out, but that was the last time we saw a splashy running back signing or move for the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're entering an offseason where there are a lot of big names available, a lot of big names in multiple positions. And one big name that could be available is one of your own in Hassan Reddick because they allowed him to seek the trade because they don't want to spend the money, right? So I want to ask you guys a question today. It's 610-632-0975. And this kind of goes back to a conversation we had last week. Last week, I asked you if part of you was excited for this Eagles offseason because they kind of have to do a big overhaul of players. You get to play armchair GM. You get to do your mock drafts. You get to do your free agent signings. You get to do, this is what my roster would look like. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do the third, right? Like, people love playing armchair GM. But the reason why the Eagles have an armchair GM type offseason is because of the collapse from last year, right? That's why you need to make 5 or 6 different moves defensively, because they had a collapse. So let me ask you this one today. Would you rather the Eagles stick with what's worked, which is not go splashy running back signing, right? Continue to build through the trenches. Your biggest free agent is either an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, which in this case would probably be a defensive lineman. You're going to sign a linebacker that's on that 4th tier where they're making $2 to $4 million, right? Maybe they get a decent safety. You need to get somebody in the secondary, which is what they did last year with Darius Slay and James Bradbury. It's just they reworked Slay and they brought Bradbury back with a new contract. But sticking with what's worked, building in the trenches, not spending too much money at the running back position, right? Keeping the offense the Ferrari that it is right now, but instead of getting a Saquon Barkley, it's getting a Matt Breida, right? A guy that you can get for less money, or a Jerick McKinnon, a guy that you can get far less money for, right? A guy that's not going to take up a lot of your cap. Or the opposite, which is the Madden-esque, fun, splashy offseason. Now, it works in different sports. Like, the Phillies have had that in recent years, the splashy offseason. This one wasn't all that splashy. It was extending Zach Wheeler and re-signing Aaron Nola. Whereas a couple years ago, it was, Harper, as we know. But then following Harper was the Schwarber and Castellanos offseason, the Wheeler offseason, right? They've had some splashy offseasons, which has actually worked for them, getting to a World Series and getting to an NLCS in back-to-back years. But the Eagles, for them to have a splashy offseason, a splashy move would be a Saquon Barkley. It would be a Derrick Henry. It would be getting a safety at the age of 30. Yesterday, we were talking about Simmons from the Denver Broncos, a guy that makes sense because he's played for Vic Fangio. He's a free agent. He's at the age of 30. You probably won't have to give him too much money. He knows the scheme. Safety's a position of need for the Eagles. But you also know what the Eagles do. The Eagles don't want to go after 30-year-old players. Remember Brian Dawkins, the second he turned 30, they shipped him out of town to go to Denver. And it's always trying to go with younger players, which sometimes could be a splashy move. But, look, a Simmons is a bigger name than some guys coming off of their rookie contract. So today's a day where I want to ask you at 610-632-0975, what would you rather the Eagles do? Do you want them to stick to the plan that has worked? Or do you want them to have fun and go with the splashy offseason? Now, we put out a poll already before the show started, and no shock that this is his Twitter name. His Twitter name is Dead Inside. But his response to the poll was no Super Bowl in 6 years to find, quote, working. There's teams that haven't made the playoffs in 6 years, right? The Eagles are year in and year out a contending team. 7 years ago, they win the Super Bowl. 6 years ago, they are an Alshon Jeffrey drop away from the NFC Championship game. The following year after that, if Carson Wentz's head doesn't get smashed into the ground by Jadeveon Clowney, I believe that they beat the Seahawks and they move on to the divisional round of the playoffs. Then there's the bad year with Wentz, and then they come back with a playoff year, a Super Bowl appearance, and then this past year was a mess. But the bones are still there. The core is still there. The offensive line is still good. The defensive line is still good. This is with the losses of Jason Kelce and probably Fletcher Cox, right? The offensive line and defensive line are still thought of highly in the city. The offense should still run well when you bring in a new offensive mind in Kellen Moore and not the crap you had last year with Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson. So it has worked, right? Like, I get it. They don't have 6 Super Bowl titles, but what they have done has gotten into the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. That alone tells me that it's working. They might just need to make one more better move or maybe tweak some things. But making the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years is a lot more than a lot of teams. And there's some teams that haven't made the playoffs in the last 7 years. So miss me with the whole, there hasn't been a Super Bowl in 6 years to find working. No, it has worked. But I also know that people get tired of it. When I read a mock draft and their first round pick is the replacement to Lane Johnson down the road, right? People go, it'd be fun if they drafted like a playmaking safety. Like, I'll be honest, part of me wanting Kyle Hamilton was not just because I thought he was going to be a good player in the NFL. I didn't want another interior defensive lineman, right? Like, I wanted a starter. Jordan Davis wasn't even a starter in year 1, and you can't even say that he's a starter going to year 3. I would rather have the splashy players sometimes. But I also know that it's worked for the Eagles sticking with their philosophy. So I'd love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. Would you rather the Eagles have a fun and splashy offseason or stick with what's worked? We have a poll up and running on the Midday count, so head on over there, start voting. We'll get to the results, the early results, on the other side. Before I go to break, Ray, hit the music, please. Your Philadelphia Flyers with an incredible, impressive win over the Panthers last night. Let me hear the goal. Let me hear the goal. Let me hear the goal.
Kate spins him behind the
With
goal.
The music.
Comes out the other side, gives it off to Hathaway. Hathaway back to Cates. Back to left point. Stall with a shot. Deflected right down the rebound. They score! Oh, what a play. Guarded Hathaway gives the Flyers the lead with 22 seconds left. Hathaway's 7th of the year, and the Flyers lead the Panthers 2-1 here late in the third.
Now let me hear the music. All right. Got to get that one in the system. Flyers beat the Panthers in Florida last night, 2-1. The Sellers are winning 2-1 in Florida against the best team in hockey. What a freaking win last night. Sam Ersson was just tremendous yesterday. The one goal he gives up was after Noah Cates turns the puck over in the Florida zone. So, I mean, I can't even blame Ersson for it. They get that win, and, you know, before the game, I'm looking at the standings. They only have a 4-point lead over the Islanders for that third spot in the Metropolitan Division, and they're about to go into the trade deadline. Well, they'll probably move a player or two. I know Scott Lawton his name is still out there a little bit, and they pull off that win yesterday. That's why I said on our Instagram post the other day, that they can be sellers and still make the playoffs this year. This team's got a decent core right now, and this is a stretch of games right now where they're playing some very good hockey teams. If they could stay afloat, they're going to make the playoffs unless they have some super collapse, which I don't see that happening. They got to get through this stretch of Panthers, Lightning, Sharks, Leafs, Bruins, Leafs, Canes, Bruins, Panthers. It's a very difficult stretch, but it starts off pretty well with the win last night. We'd love to hear from you guys, you Flyers fans. It was a big win last night. Let's celebrate it. 610-632-0975. Get to race thoughts coming up next. Your calls. And I'll also go through a list of the available splashy free agents in the NFL, which goes back to our conversation today. Would you rather have the Eagles have a fun and splashy offseason or stick with what's worked? I'm Andrew Salchunas, the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers win in the final 30 seconds. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by KFC. KFC's new smashed potato bowl is smashed with fries, mashed potatoes, cheese, and bacon. And it's only $3.49. It's finger-licking good. A massive win for the Flyers last night. The Florida Panthers, who had lost just 2 of their last 18 games, hosted the Flyers on Thursday night with the game tied 1-1 in just 21.3 seconds to go in the third period. Garnet Hathaway had an answer.
Yegor Zamula back to Noah Cates, spins him behind the goal. Comes out the other side, gives it off to Hathaway. Hathaway back to Cates. Bagged at left point. Stall with a shot. Deflected right down the rebound. They score! Oh, what a play. Garnet Hathaway gives the Flyers the lead with 22 seconds left. Hathaway's 7th of the year, and the Flyers lead the Panthers 2-1 here late in the third.
Flyers return to the ice Saturday against the Tampa Bay Lightning at 7. Of course, all eyes still locked on the trade deadline today. And in the NHL at 3 o'clock, we'll keep you updated with anything that happens there. As for the Eagles, they officially announced the release of Vontae Maddox yesterday. The slot corner spent his entire 6-year career in Philadelphia, struggled to stay healthy, and the move will save the Eagles some cap money. Derek Gunn also reporting yesterday that Brandon Graham and the Eagles are still negotiating on a 1-year deal so he can end his career in Philly. NFL free agency officially begins on Monday. And the 76ers return to action tonight, trying to bounce back from back-to-back losses. They'll host the New Orleans Pelicans, who have won back-to-back games at 7 o'clock. Catch the live call right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Ray Dunn. Breaking sports news all day, every day is here. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
97.5 The Fanatic's Knockout Tournament, presented by Ferguson HVAC, is back. Ever dream of shooting hoops on an actual NBA court? We've got your chance. Starting Monday, listen for your chance to win a pair of tickets to see the Sixers take on the Clippers on Wednesday, March 27th. After the game, you'll head to the 76ers court
It is 10:20 on the Midday Show, 97.5 The Fanatic. It is a Fanatic Friday, presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys to know to fix your flow. Man, I'm juiced up about the Flyers. I was watching last night. They're up 1-0. I see the goal scored. Cates just kind of turned the puck over, and Florida scores. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. And I'll be honest, I thought the Panthers would eventually take the lead and win the game. And you go, all right, hard-fought battle against the best team in hockey. And instead, the Flyers end up getting the goal and winning the game last night. And, look, that's a good sign. Because for me, I want them to still be sellers and stick with the rebuild. However, I want playoff hockey in Philadelphia. I'll be a little selfish. Why can't I be selfish for once? You know, I do want my cake and eat it too, right? I do want to sell and get some draft picks back and think about the future and also go to the playoffs and play hopefully 2 series or win the whole thing. That'd be nice too. But give me some playoff hockey here in Philadelphia. I'm excited for it. I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought they were not going to be a good hockey team this year. And then when they started winning some games early on, I reminded myself, oh, yeah, like Sean Couturier was hurt all last season, and there are a lot of guys that were hurt last season. Like Cam Atkinson missed a lot of time last year. So the guys that are the vets on this team are back and playing, and they're playing good hockey. And then you get the young guys contributing as well. So fun night last night. A win like that, I know there was a lot of Philadelphia fans down there yesterday. Our buddy John Brazier from the Phillies was at the game yesterday. I got to text him, see how it was, because there's a lot of people down there for spring training. So they coupled the spring training trip with a chance to see the Flyers down in Florida. So a nice night for the Orange and Black yesterday. I would love to hear from you guys because the trade deadline's today at 3 o'clock. And I still say stick with the rebuild, stick with the plan. Now, the biggest one, if they end up trading Scott Lawton, that's going to be the biggest hit because, you know, he's got the letter A on the sweater. So that's going to be a big one. It'd be a big loss, big, locker room culture kind of deal. And a good player, too. So that would be a pretty tough hit for the Flyers, but it's something that they should do, right, when it comes to sticking with the rebuild. It's something that they should do, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean once you trade Scott Lawton that the wheels should fall off. It just kind of sucks that the trade deadline is at the beginning of this tough stretch, right? Like, it would have been awesome if they could have, kind of done this stretch like a month ago and just got through it. And then the schedule lightens up, and then you trade your, some of your players that's going to give you the biggest worth back, and then you could kind of make your way into the playoffs with the lighter schedule. Unfortunately, the trade deadline's right at the beginning, but they got a nice win last night. I want to celebrate that with you guys at 610-632-0975. But the Eagles conversation, and I'm going to get Ray here in a second, I want to know, would you want the Eagles to change what they've been doing? The Eagles, what they've been doing has been building in the trenches. The Eagles, what they've been doing has been not paying big money for running backs, not paying big money for linebackers. And in this city, that's actually the opposite of what a lot of people want. But it has worked, right? The Eagles have gotten to the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. They won a Super Bowl 7 years ago. They made it back to another one. They were an Alshon drop away from another NFC Championship appearance. Like, it's been a successful organization. But I do think people are tired with the philosophy. So I just want to know what you guys want. So, Ray, I think you would agree that a part of you would want to do the splashy offseason. But I know that you're very much against it.
Yeah, when you say fun and splashy, my instant response is a guy who loves fun and wants to have the most fun in the world. Come on. What are we doing here with this fun and splashy thing? Why we got to make it fun? I just want it to work. And now when you start mentioning some of the positions, like spending at safety, maybe actually bringing in a linebacker that's not, the guy who led the league in tackles 4 years ago who actually isn't that great, I would like to do those things. But if you had to push me into one of these two camps, I'm still sticking with what works because I know it works. I will be upset when they inevitably take someone in the trenches in the first round. I want that very clear.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So I know this is hard for some people to understand, like the autumn win 81. what the bleep does this even mean? I know it's hard. I know. You have to use your brain a little bit today. I'm sorry. I'm sorry on a Friday that I'm asking.
Yeah, it hurt me this morning.
Sorry
I'm
that
still trying to figure out what's happening.
I'm asking you to think about this. Clemenza checks it. Oh, my goodness. Content must be at an all-time low. I know. This must be hard for you to think about. Like, should the Eagles keep doing what they've been doing, which is what's worked, or do you want to be entertained a little bit? I know this is hard for some of you to understand. I'm sorry. I'll weep for you. I don't think it's all that hard to really freaking figure out. The Eagles do the same thing over and over and over again, which is build in the trenches, right? Which is not pay Saquon Barkley. But part of you at the same time, like if you play Madden, right? If you were, you're downloading Madden 25, right? Because it would be the 25. But you have this current roster with the offseason approaching. You would probably pay for Saquon Barkley.
No.
Yes, you would.
Nope.
You're full of it. Yes,
Nope.
you would.
No shot.
If you were playing Madden, you would get Saquon Barkley.
Mm-mm.
But in real life, you're not going to because you realize that's not, A, what the Eagles do. B, it might not be what good NFL teams do. Unless you're the San Francisco 49ers and your quarterback is making next to nothing and your philosophy offensively is to run the ball a lot and to go through the running back, which is why you get Christian McCaffrey. But signing Saquon Barkley, signing Derrick Henry is not something the Eagles do or a lot of teams will end up doing. So the poll, would you rather the Eagles have fun and splashy offseason or stick with what they've been doing, which has worked? Ray, even though it's worked, only 45% want to stick with what's worked. And 55% want the fun and splashy offseason, which means you want Saquon Barkley. Like, if you're saying you want the fun and splashy offseason, that means you want Saquon Barkley. That means you want to pay Patrick McQueen $20 million a year to play linebacker. Look, part of me wants it too. But I know that that's not necessarily the smartest thing in the world to do all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about it. 610-632-0975. I'll be honest, from a content purpose, Ray, I want fun and splashy. If I can, separate football guy and radio guy for a second, radio guy wants fun and splashy. Radio guy wants Saquon Barkley. Radio guy wants Patrick Queen. That's what radio guy wants. But, Eagles pregame show guy, football guy that I am, goes, yeah, you shouldn't give $10 million to Saquon and, maybe you just draft another running back or find somebody that couples with Kenneth Gainwell well, find who else is available on a final year of their deal, make a trade for him. Because that's kind of what the Eagles do, and that's kind of what's worked.
Yeah, you got to shut that radio guy up. All right, he's got to stop. Whatever he's doing to try and control the way you think, it has to end. I don't need the content of Saquon Barkley.
Why?
This is a football town. You know what? We understand how to build a football team here, okay? We understand what it takes. Even though the poll right now is not reflecting that. We will figure out a way to talk ourselves into a running back rotation that feels less exciting than Saquon Barkley, and it will work, and we will enjoy it.
All right, so here are your splashy signings, right? And we'll go position and need, right? I'm not going to go wide receiver. So running back, Saquon, fun and splashy. Derrick Henry, fun and splashy. Josh Jacobs, fun and splashy. Do you put Pollard in the fun and splashy category?
Might be splashy, but I doubt it'll be fun.
Yeah, because he looks like he's losing a little bit, but he would come back to Kellen Moore, who got the most out of him.
Ooh.
So those are your fun and splashy running backs. Let's see. You want to go? Let's go safety. There you go. Your fun and splashy safeties. Or we'll go corner first. You got all these kind of make sense. Kendall Fuller, Stephon Gilmore at 33, probably not. Kenny Moore. How about Steven Nelson if he wants to come back? He's a free agent.
No, I think he made it pretty clear this is not the place to be for him.
Safety. Now, is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson fun and splashy? Or is he sticks with what works? You do need they need a safety. But then again, they trade for him on the final year of his deal.
Yeah,
it's almost like the running back mentality.
He was the stick with what works. So he would be fun and splashy. So I will talk out of both sides of my mouth on this one. CJ Gardner-Johnson, then everything else stick to what works.
Well, what about like a Justin Simmons, age 30? I would believe that's fun and splashy.
All right, let's get splashy at safety. The rest of it, you run it back the way you feel comfortable with.
You party wants to go fun and splashy.
Well, yeah, man. I want someone that I could plug in at safety and play. I don't need to wait for a rookie to figure out their way in this league, and I don't need to try and figure out what I have in Reed Blankenship anymore.
Yeah.
Give me a safety, man.
So do you have that Mosher clip? Jeff Mosher was on with the best show ever yesterday, and he made a statement that I really appreciate it based off of what he's hearing and based off of his beliefs as well with what the Eagles are going to do at the safety position because, if you've listened to the show, you know that I'm not the biggest Blankenship guy. I do think Sidney Brown could be a bit of a player, but I'm not going to just expect him to be totally fine coming off of a major injury that he sustained. I thought Byard, it seemed like, made some business decisions in the playoff game, and he might not have been alone, but I think I saw that a little bit. So I want to go with a totally different safety room. Maybe Blankenship could stick around as my third safety. Here's what Jeff Mosher had to say yesterday on the best show ever.
I'd be stunned, Ty, if they didn't come out of the entire free agency period with two safeties. Now, I don't think they're going to break open the bank for two safeties. It might be one guy that you pay a lot of money to, and then another guy who is your, a placeholder as you wait for Sidney Brown to get back from his ACL injury, somebody with experience, like you mentioned, and maybe somebody who's got experience with the Vic Fangio defense. But you look at the situation that they're in, Ty, they don't have safeties under contract. Right now, the only safeties they have under contract are Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, and Tristan McCullum. Okay, Reed Blankenship, nice story, but he should be a number 3 safety. Sidney Brown, coming back from an ACL tear, don't even know when he's going to be ready by. Tristan McCullum was a practice squad guy who got into 1 or 2 games. So they can't just go ahead and get one safety. They definitely need 2, and you can't just draft a safety no matter what round and expect that guy's going to come in and be able to start for you. So, yeah, they do need 2.
All right, I like that. I like hearing that. 2 new safeties. One they're going to probably open the bank for. Another guy that's going to be a credible player. I think about there's this guy that was attacking me on social media during the football season, Ray, who believed I did not like Reed Blankenship because he was white. No, I don't like Reed Blankenship because I don't think he's talented. Plain and simple. I think he's a nice third safety. All right, let me backtrack. I don't think he's not talented. I just don't think he's a number 1 safety. I think he got extremely exposed last year because he had to play every down. And I give him credit. He did play, and he was banged up a lot last year. I'll give him credit. I just don't think he's a starting number 1 or number 2 safety in this league. And it has nothing to do with him being white. I just don't think he's that talented. He was an undrafted free agent that the Eagles needed to play when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got hurt 2 years ago. All right? And I know he picked up a fumble in a playoff game. Yeah, a game in which they were up 30 points, and he wasn't even the one that forced it, right? Just picked it up. Congratulations. Derek Barnett picked up a Super Bowl fumble once. He wasn't the one that made the play. It was Brandon Graham. So I'm glad that Jeff Mosher is hearing that they might be doing that. That's something I need. All right, let's go to the phones. Would you rather the Eagles have a fun and splashy offseason, which is against what they have done, or do you want them to stick with what they have done, which has worked? But I know, as Ray even said, he knows he's going to be upset the second they draft a guy in the trenches in the first round, which, hey, get ready for it because you know it's happening.
Please now.
Let's go to Randall in Philly. Randall, you're on the Fanatic.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
What's up, Randall?
Not much, just hanging in there trying to, listen to the news and see what the Eagles plan on doing. But honestly, I want the Eagles to go make a splash out there. I'm tired of us standing packed and not breaking the bank open for needs. So for a person like Patrick Queen, with how bad our linebackers are, man, if y'all don't break open the bank, man, there's going to be...
Well, here's the thing. They have broken open the bank. It's just not at linebacker. It's not at running back. They do it for defensive line. They do it for offensive line. They do it for A.J. Brown. They did it for Jalen Hurts. They made him the highest paid player in the NFL for a few minutes until the next quarterback got paid, right? So they do break open the bank. It's just not at linebacker, this is a linebacker-friendly city, right? But we love linebackers in Philly. We love running backs. So you can't say that they don't break open the bank, but my question is, would you want them to do it differently this offseason?
I truly would want them to do it this offseason because of how bad the linebackers played this season. Man, I was banging my head against the wall watching this defense play, man. And we need one of those sideline to sideline linebackers. And Patrick Queen would be that because he could be flying around the field and cover tight ends and stuff like that. But I also would invest in getting Saquon Barkley. And the only reason that I would say that is because you see what Saquon Barkley was in New York. Imagine behind Philadelphia's offensive line what Saquon Barkley could possibly do behind their offensive line.
Not just this offensive line. Imagine playing for a team that also has a threat to throw because Daniel Jones sucks and those wide receivers blow. Whereas on this team, there's actually, if you bring in Saquon Barkley, and thanks for the call, Randall, you bring in Saquon Barkley, this offense is dangerous. It already is when you have a good OC in place and not what you had last year. But this offense is dangerous. There's not even a part of you that wants him, right? Not even a little part. Like, come on. You don't think, I am Temple made, Temple proud. We'll talk about at some point. But as a Penn State hater, I would still love to see Saquon in an Eagles uniform.
Nothing to do with Penn State. Has literally nothing to do with Penn State. Has to do with the fact that, we got to pay him $10 million?
Yeah, but there's not a part of you that wants this.
Yeah, man. Let's just score 30 points a game and get outscored by 5 points a game because you're not investing anything in the defense.
Well, you could sign Saquon. It's only 10. They got what, like $40 million available?
Only 10. And then you're giving, the extension to Devontae?
You work on that next year. You still have him under contract.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah,
I mean, look, they're not going to pay Hassan Reddick. We know that now.
Yeah, so
point.
now legitimately you have 11 holes on defense.
Yes.
So.
Oh, man. Part of you doesn't want to have a Madden team out there?
Sure,
I'm not saying saying it's a smart thing to do, but it would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
you got Hurts and Saquon and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert.
You know me, I'm a sucker for the story. If he comes, he plays for the Eagles. There's gonna be the great story about everyone in his hometown being Eagles fans, all of his friends being Eagles fans. He gets a chance to play for the Birds. Plus, we could stick it to the Giants. And I would love to do that. I would love to be able to have that conversation with my family up in North Jersey about Saquon choosing
right away. Tiki Barber's already going on his radio show saying, Tiki can't go to the Eagles. It will destroy his legacy here in New York.
Maybe you should have thought about that when you were building the Giants.
He said if he went anywhere else, it wouldn't destroy his legacy. But if he went to the Eagles, it would destroy his legacy in New York.
I get it, because we would be saying the same thing if a guy was, jumping ship that way. But, hey, maybe don't be bad at building a team.
Right.
I don't know. You don't want your guy to leave.
They paid Daniel Jones a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. And he sucks.
Correct.
He has sucked. He's never been good.
We were having a conversation about Tommy DeVito or Daniel Jones.
Right.
That's something that people are talking
and
about.
They're paying him $50 million. It's ridiculous.
Disaster for them.
Now, hold on. There was a meeting today in New York.
Oh, I saw this.
Now, this is funny. I guess part of me respects it. So, it's been reported since the season ended that Russell Wilson could make his way to Pittsburgh and be a Steeler, right? Because maybe they might not be all in love with Pickett. But you bring in Russ over. I don't know how they can expect it to be much better after what happened in Denver. But on his way to Pittsburgh, which is his meeting with the Steelers today, Russell Wilson, this is per Adam Schefter, before traveling to Pittsburgh today, Russell Wilson stopped in New Jersey for what one source described as an exploratory meeting with the Giants, per league sources. Wilson is in Pittsburgh today to meet with the Steelers. Do you respect it? Or should Russell Wilson just go to the Steelers? Because he could have done the Giants thing after the Steelers meeting. He's basically said, you know what? Pull over. This is Rutherford? Pull over.
I respect it. Yeah, man. What? You think the Steelers can be loyal to you if they have a better option?
That's a good point.
Steelers see something better pop up this offseason?
But then again, he could have gone to the Giants literally 2 days later.
Yeah. Oh, well. It's a cold world out there.
I find it funny.
The man signed a 5-year deal with Denver and never got to experience any of that deal.
Yeah, it's.
You know what? If he wants to take a pit stop in New York on his way to Pittsburgh, that's cool.
How great it would be if the Giants took on that contract and we're still paying Daniel Jones.
Do they have to?
I don't know.
I don't think they have
It
to.
would
I
just
think he's just been released.
It would just be awesome.
I mean, it'd be awesome if they had $90 million in this world tied into Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones.
It's
not the way it's going to
fantastic.
happen, but I'd love to see it.
No, I would absolutely love to see it. All right, so 610-632-0975. That's the number to climb in. Answer this question for me. Would you rather the Eagles have a fun and splashy offseason, which is Saquon, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? You're putting a lot of money invested into this upcoming season. Or do you want them to stick with what they've been doing, which has worked? 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last 7 years. One of them they did win, and it's the one and only Lombardi Trophy in Eagles franchise history. But I know that's not something we love, right? We don't love the building through the trenches. It's not fun to talk about, not just for us on the radio, for a lot of you. You know, people don't get juiced up when the lineman gets drafted all the time. People would rather see Kyle Hamilton. People would rather see running back. Like the whole Bijan Robinson last year, as ridiculous as that was, people would rather have seen Bijan Robinson because it's a more splashy position. It's a more sex appeal position. Not linemen, not trenches. So what do you want the Eagles to do this offseason for your own entertainment? Do you want them to appease your needs of entertainment, which would be a fun and splashy offseason? It would be the dream team offseason, right? Like, that's what it comes down to.
And how'd that work out?
That's what it comes down to. So we'll continue that conversation with you guys on the phones at 610-632-0975. Also, coming up next, I'm going to play you something that should put a man behind bars. I think we need to come up with a constitutional rule for bad takes, because it's gone too far. Like, takes have gone too far because people are just doing takes just to get reaction, and some of you guys are all for it, which is weird to me. But there was a take yesterday that I think should put somebody behind bars. I'll tell you what that is next. Also, coming up later on today at 11:30, we'll be joined by Todd Herremans. Todd Herremans, of course, very tight with Jason Kelce. I would love to just get some more stories on Jason Kelce, talk about how impactful Kelce was to the Eagles and Philadelphia, and who better than to talk to one of his best friends, Todd Herremans, who will be joining us coming up at 11:30. All right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers win in Florida. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by Juicy.
Media Group station. Broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studios. Powering possibilities. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 10:49 on the Midday Show. 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. All right, so we opened the show talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, shockingly. Would you rather the Eagles have a fun and splashy offseason or stick with what they've been doing, which has worked, which has been the nuts and bolts of building through the trenches and not paying linebackers money and not paying running backs money? But the fun and splashy would be going after a guy like Saquon Barkley, which I know a lot of people would love to see here. I would like to see it. Radio Andrew would like to see Saquon Barkley here in Philadelphia. Football guy Andrew, not so much, because I know it hasn't necessarily worked in the past, but maybe your offense could just be so lethal that nobody could stop you, and you can win that way. I'm just not necessarily sure if that's worked because it didn't work last year, even though I will stand by Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni being a terrible pairing, and that's part of the reason why the offense didn't work last year.
Remind me, who's the head coach of this team still?
It's Nick Sirianni, but he's the head coach now.
Oh, yeah.
Remember,
sure.
he told us this. He said he's taking a step back. He's the head coach. He's gonna make sure everything's good offensively and defensively, and Kellen Moore's going to take over. And then there was that report that now all of a sudden Nick Sirianni wants his hands on things.
No way.
Yeah.
Well,
part of me's almost ignoring the fact that he's still the head coach at this point.
Well, that's a really hard thing to do.
Because I don't want him to be here, right?
Yes.
And I'm already kind of worried about next season because he is still here, because the collapse in the locker room happened with him. Everybody pointed out, well, he got an A on the NFLPA thing. Yeah, when it was surveyed between August and November.
Yes.
When they were starting the season until they were 10-1, and then it fell apart after that, and that the survey hadn't happened yet, or the survey already happened. Excuse me. So, maybe it's not the same feelings as it was when things were going well and nothing could go wrong. So I'm just going to try to ignore the fact that he's there. By the way, I just saw a tweet from Noah Levick. I appreciate Noah for putting this out there. Tyrese Maxey taking jumpers at shoot-around this morning. He is missing tonight's game with the concussion protocol, but it's a good thing that he's back out there in the court. So Tyrese Maxey out taking shots during shoot-around today. So I like that. The other thing I brought up quickly was the Flyers. Would love to just hear your excitement. I mean, a nice win last night, beating the best team in hockey. And today's the trade deadline, so we'll see what they're going to do. We'll keep you posted. Yes, need it. We will keep you posted on any news surrounding the Flyers leading up to tonight's trade deadline at 3 o'clock. I still want them to sell, but I still think if they sell, they could stay afloat during this stretch and then make the playoffs. I want both. Call me selfish. I don't give a damn. Now, before we get back to the phones, it's 610-632-0975. Ray, what would fair punishment be for ridiculous takes? Because, the whole freedom of speech thing, I think, needs to be revisited at some point. Because back then, I don't think there were sports hot takes when they came up with the Constitution.
I'd like to think that there were, but I'm just curious what they would be.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, man, I bet you that guy could chop down 10 trees faster than you can.
Right.
One.
Like, George Washington is a system cherry tree chopper.
Yeah, or system president. We don't know.
Well, I mean, technically, by all technicalities, he was a system president. They put the system in place, and then he became president.
Right.
It wasn't the opposite way around. Now, you could argue he helped create the system.
That's a good point.
So, like James Harden, he might just be the system.
He might be the system. Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough one. 610. I think we should go and see if we could get that one figured out.
I don't know. When they came up with the freedom of speech, I don't think hot takes were really around back then when it comes to sports. That's just my guess.
What do you think John Adams thought about ring culture in the NBA?
I haven't seen an old takes exposed of those guys back then.
Oh, they got a lot of bad takes.
Not with sports, though. I haven't seen any.
That's a good point.
So I think we need to revisit freedom of speech because now that everybody has a podcast, everybody has an avenue, everybody can write whatever they want, tweet whatever they want. If you have an awful take, I think you should maybe just be arrested. But if that's too cruel, like what? Just have everything taken away from you? Like your ability to speak behind a microphone, your ability to write, your ability to tweet? Like if you have a bad take, should you be suspended from Twitter for 6 days? Like if you say something horrible, you get suspended. If you have a horrible take, you should probably get suspended.
Now, because this would line the pockets of Elon Musk, I'm out on it. This is what jumped to mind first.
Okay.
It's like the reverse creator program. Instead of being paid out for your tweets, you actually are fined for said tweet.
Okay.
For every piece of engagement you get, you are fined money.
I like that.
And you have to pay it or lose access to your account.
So this is what's got to me talking about this. There was I'll call him an analyst, who came up with a trade idea. I'm not even going to introduce the name myself. I'm going to let somebody else introduce the name for me.
This past offseason, some clown named Mike Lombardi told him that he was the least qualified head coach in the NFL. You saw a driven Doug Peterson, a man who went for it on 4th and down. Went for it on 4th and down in the Super Bowl with the trick play. He wasn't playing just to go mediocre. He's playing for a Super Bowl.
So Jason Kelce, talking about Mike Lombardi, some clown. I know Mike Lombardi heard from somebody that he's the least qualified head coach. He then continued going with it. I remember that entire offseason. I was working middays at the time, and Lombardi never moved on from that stance. I think even after they won the Super Bowl, he said something like he got lucky or something, whatever. Do we know what this show was like? What was the show?
I believe it's the podcast GM Shuffle.
Okay, I'd like to give the proper credit for having Mike Lombardi on. Mike Lombardi was talking about Justin Fields, starting quarterback with the Chicago Bears, and there's been a lot of trade talks. And take a listen to this one.
There seems to be not a lot of momentum. I mean, we saw that video that moved the market, Femi, of him jumping up and down. Everybody said, well, that must be Atlanta's involved. But I talked to a lot of people that were at the Combine, and I can't find a team. If I were Philly, I would trade for him. Because I think if you put him behind Hurts and run the six-back offense with him, he might go in there and play good.
So I know we're having fun with the off-season conversation of sticking with what works or having the fun and splashy offseason. So he's basically telling us that he wants Hurts and Fields on the field at the same time. He wants the Eagles to trade for him so that he could be a backup, but also they could run plays with him out there. Who in their right mind's thinking that? And I mean in their right mind. Who in their right mind is thinking that? Now, shame on us for even playing it, I guess. He got what he wanted. But why should everybody have a platform when he's saying that the Eagles should trade for Justin Fields, have him back up Hurts, sometimes play with Hurts at the same time in the field? Why? We need to revisit freedom of speech, right? Because he's allowed to say whatever he wants, but sometimes if you say something so asinine, like, you should probably be punished for it.
Well, we could probably go somewhere in the FCC. Like, I feel like that's probably the place we go to really start enforcing this.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, there's the 7 words you can't say. Maybe there's, like, the sports takes that, deny you your right to be on a platform. It's tough. We got to find the enforcement of this, but I don't want to hear any more from him.
I don't understand how somebody could say that and truly believe it. I really don't understand. Now, if he said, hey, trade him to Philly just so he can be a backup, which I still think would be ridiculous, like maybe a reclamation project for a year, but like Hurts the franchise quarterback, like Justin Fields wouldn't step on the field unless Hurts would get hurt. No.
Here we go. See, now I'm justifying in my brain. You know what he's thinking?
What is he thinking?
This is a quarterback factory. So with that, He comes here, and obviously with the number of times they've been able to churn out quarterbacks, he's just going to figure it out here, with the strong leadership of Sirianni, Moore, new quarterback coach. They're going to be able to put him in position where he is, the next quarterback to emerge from this quarterback factory. From the place that brought you Nate Sudfeld, Clayton Thorson, now they're going to go get their top-line talent. And they're going to go get their top-line talent, Justin Fields, to be a backup. And he's going to revitalize his career here.
During a good camp, and that's it.
Oh, you just wait till that first preseason throw, man.
I just
hit those phone lines. We're talking about who the starting quarterback is.
No, we would. It would happen.
Oh, it would.
For a fact, it would happen.
Someone heard that and was like, you know what? He's younger than Hurts, isn't he?
Remember we played a clip during the season where there was a guy. It was on Speak for Yourself or one of those shows on Fox.
David Carr.
No, it wasn't David Carr. No, somebody said that Fields was better than Jalen Hurts and it wasn't even close.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, yes. And he said it wasn't even close. So that guy would probably say, yeah, the Eagles should go after him because he's better than Jalen Hurts. Other than that, I don't know how many people would actually think that Fields is better than Hurts or ever thought that Fields was better than Hurts or has shown that Fields is better than Hurts because I don't see that. But, yeah, I think some guys should just start getting punished for the things they have to say because that's not going to happen, Mike Lombardi. It's not going to happen. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Aaron in Lansdale. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, guys. Good morning.
What's up, dude? I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Happy Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, about that comment, it was Greg Jennings. He's the one that said he thought.
Greg Jennings? Okay.
The Fields was better than Hurts, which is a crazy comment. Yeah, I just want to talk about as far as the splashy offseason versus going kind of traditional. I guess my thought process on it is, yeah, the name Saquon Barkley and the position makes it seem as if it'll be splashy. But if we're looking at, I think all teams really should kind of think about it. If we're looking at a running back going, a top-notch guy, maybe is around like $9 to $10 million. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what we paid for Avonte Maddox and Marcus Mariota, a third slot corner and a backup quarterback. So, yeah, it might seem like, we're splash move while we pay $9 million for a running back, but $9 million for a potential top 3 running back, which is what we paid for a backup quarterback. What do you guys thoughts on like that?
Right, yes. At the Mariota thing, I think part of it was like they brought in Foles and they won, right? Like I think it's that insurance policy instead of going with the young option, which is why they ended up drafting Jalen Hurts to begin with, but because they thought it was a cheaper option to have behind Wentz than a guy like Nick Foles. But I get what you're saying. Like if you're allocating the money, in other areas, Maddox also, when they gave him the contract extension, this was a couple of years ago when he was still playing at a high level and wasn't hurt all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking not really more of the player. I'm thinking just the position. Like we're paying for the money that we're saying is too much to pay a guy who could be, especially with our line, a top 3 running back in the league. And instead we have it for like a back quarterback, for a third cornerback. Why the Eagles made a
but a third corner. I mean, I don't look at it as third. I look at slot corner, right? Like, and I think that's still a very important position especially in today's NFL with the way guys are lining up. I mean, some of the best receivers are slot receivers now. I mean, or guys are moving around all over the place.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's just almost like kind of like we're saying, it's like the value proposition. Like, yes, slot corner is important.
Right, and it comes down to what do they believe is more important? Do they believe a running back is more important than a slot corner or vice versa? You know what I mean? And that's where they're going to allocate the money. I appreciate the call, Aaron. Like, I don't want to just poo-poo slot corner because it's third on the depth chart in terms of cornerbacks, but it is number one. Like, Avonte Maddox was your number. Like, slot corner is now a position of itself, right? Like, I know sometimes you see guys move on to the inside, but it's usually left corner, right corner, and slot. And so I'm okay with still paying decent money for a slot corner because you see how guys are moving around all over. I mean, A.J. Brown lines up in the slot sometimes, right? A top wide receiver in the NFL. I don't want to have, a cornerback that's barely getting paid any money because you wanted to try to go cheap in the slot when very talented wide receivers are still lining up in the slot, or there are talented, just straight-up slot wide receivers. But I get what he's saying. Like, instead of putting too much money in the backup quarterback, allocate more money than you normally would at running back. Like, if you're willing to pay $4 or $5 million for a running back, Why don't you go up to 7 or 8 and then you just drop money elsewhere? But we had this conversation not too long ago when we did the cap hits. So the Eagles pay their money in quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, D-line, and corner. The areas they don't pay top dollar for is linebacker, this past year safety, running back. But if you were to pay one of those areas more money, you would have to take it away from somewhere else. And I don't know where you're taking away from. Unless, when you think about it, right, like this could be a year you do it. Because if you look at your pass rush, Brandon Graham's not going to get paid all that much money, and he's not going to really play all that much, right? Reddick might be off the books. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, rookie deal still. Milton Williams isn't getting paid all that much money. Like, if you bring in a second-tier edge rusher instead of that top splashy edge rusher, you could allocate the money somewhere else into running back, if that's what you want to do. But that's just not what they believe in.
Or you could allocate the safety.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. Saquon, sure. In a vacuum, a player of Saquon's ability, if you just added him to the roster, of course, it would be exciting.
It would be so exciting.
But ultimately, when you talk about, well, you could stop investing here and you could stop investing there, it's like, yeah, you could take that money and spread it elsewhere, or you realize they're going to spend that money. And if they need to spread it elsewhere and they're not going to spend that money, I'd rather them spread it literally on the side of the ball that we saw not get a single stop in multiple games down the stretch. We're living a life of luxury with the idea of Saquon Barkley, where right now this is not luxury. This is not we're remodeling the kitchen, in this beautiful home. No.
But your bathroom's leaking.
Yeah, the roof collapsed on one side of the house. We're not putting tile in the bathroom here. No, you got to rebuild that first. You got to rebuild all of that first before you start with. No.
I could use an outhouse.
No, stop. See, that's.
I could use an outhouse.
No, stop it.
Have you ever used an outhouse?
No.
It was just a joyful experience.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Okay? It's a glorified porta potty. Okay? Stop it. You're
peeing into the ground, right?
You're not enjoying it.
That's big.
No, you're not enjoying it.
It's fun.
Once it's fun. Once it becomes a lifestyle, it's not fun. Okay? You're not built for that, Andrew. You're not built for that.
You don't think I could take care of the plumbing?
No.
After it fills up?
No, I don't think you could. I don't think you could.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
I am right about that.
By the way, another big-name player released once they reach a certain age. I got to see how old he is at this point. This is a player that has been on the wish list of Eagles fans for years. He's 33.
Yeah, he's finally fallen off the wish list.
Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
The Steelers have released Patrick Peterson, another, all-pro, Pro Bowl guy that's now out there. But 33 is a little bit different. He made it up to the 33 mark. Even though, he was with the Steelers. I don't even remember him with the Steelers last year, if I'm being honest with you.
Pass.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm just saying that was a guy that, for years, it was go get Patrick Peterson. I would pay a first-round pick to go get Patrick Peterson. That was something that we heard for years. All right. So here's what we got going on. We have Todd Herremans is going to be joining us coming up at 11:30. So I wanted to have him on because I wanted somebody to come on that had a much different experience than what Ray and I had and what callers had with Jason Kelce. I would love to hear a former teammate of Jason Kelce's and a friend of Jason Kelce to come on and talk about the impact that Jason Kelce made on a football team, in a locker room, in the community. Todd Herremans knows Jason Kelce well. So the Todd father is going to be joining us coming up at 11:30. Before we get to that, there's a topic that Ray sent me yesterday that we'll get into. You texted this to me yesterday. And the conversation kind of goes off of what we were talking about yesterday, but just the opposite. The player that you just never gave up on, that you kept on thinking something was going to change. And did this cross your mind when Ben Simmons was officially out for the year?
I wish that it was something as mainstream as that.
Oh, okay. It was just something that hit you?
No. I had our good buddy Tom Alvord sent me spring numbers for a certain player, and I can feel myself talking my way back into them one more time.
Okay, so we'll hear who that player is, and we'll go through a couple of names of guys that you just never gave up on. You always thought that they were going to break through at some point. And look, we had two of them here, in Ben Simmons, and for a lot of you, like myself, Carson Wentz. But also, the conversation at 610-632-0975. Do you want the Eagles to have the fun and splashy offseason, or do you want them to stick with what works? So the poll on the Midday account, 53% of you say fun and splashy, and 47% of you say stick with what works. So we're almost neck and neck. So that means this is a hot button topic that I'd love to hear from you on the phones. But for those of you who want fun and splashy, tell me why. Is it just the sheer fact that you're bored of Eagles off seasons of the last couple of years? Now, A.J. Brown's a splashy move 2 years ago. Like, that was a splashy move. And it's not something that the Eagles are known for doing, paying top dollar for a wide receiver, right? So you can't say that it's always been boring off seasons. Last year was pretty boring, though. So is that part of it? Just like you want to have something fun to look forward to? Because Saquon Barkley would be something fun to look forward to, even though you know that's not what the Eagles do, and you know that what the Eagles have done has worked? Let's talk about it. 610-632-0975. And I would love to hear from Flyers fans, man. That was a big win last night. And you got the trade deadline coming up at 3 o'clock. A win like last night, I think, puts people in a hard spot. Because I think a lot of people are pro-rebuild. I'm pro-rebuild. But when you get a win like last night, you know there's probably a Flyers fan out there today going, man, you know what? No, screw it. I want them to be buyers at the deadline because they're a good hockey team. Look at them. They're in the playoffs right now if the season ended today, and they beat the best team in hockey. You know what it's like in the playoffs. Anything can happen as long as you get hot and you have good talent going into the playoffs. I'm still sticking by it. You still got to sell by 3 o'clock today. But I think you can still make the playoffs. So we'll keep you posted on any move that might happen for the Flyers leading up to today's 3 o'clock trade deadline. Todd Herremans joins the show next to talk about Jason Kelce right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Midday show here, 97.5 The Fanatic on a Fanatic Friday. Fanatic Fridays presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys who know to fix your flow. And my bad. Did I forget to do the 10 o'clock sponsor, Ray? My apologies to our friends at Winner Nation. Take advantage of Winner Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows, plus make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90Nation or visit winnernation.com. And, of course, our 11 o'clock hour brought to us by Golden Nugget Jewelers. That's where Philly gets engaged. Todd Herremans is going to be joining us coming up at 11:30. So 10 minutes from now, we'll speak with Todd Herremans to talk about Jason Kelce. We'd love to hear some stories of Jason Kelce, the man that Jason Kelce is, the guy that we know and love, but also what we might not know that will make us love Jason Kelce even more. So we'll talk to Todd Herremans coming up at 11:30. Before I get to this topic that you texted me about yesterday, it's been a rough couple days for me.
Oh?
I've been looking in the mirror, and the grays in the beard are starting to show a little bit more.
Shave.
Yeah, but I usually do the scruff thing. I have not baby face clean shaved. I don't know how long. I did this scruff look for my wedding, which was 4 years ago now. So It's been over 4 years since I've gone full shave. Now, I'm not somebody that's going to run from the grave. I am not going to die. Wow. I'm not going to dye my hair is the way to say that sentence.
Jeez, dude.
I'm going to die at some point. You know, hopefully many, 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 many moons from now.
Second time this week we got down this path.
I'm not going to dye my beard or my hair. I'll go salt and pepper. I'm expecting it. But the shock value of the seeing them pop through. There's the shock value of seeing like one, like the first one, which I got like 2 years ago. But then it's when you start seeing the patches where you're like, ah, damn. I turned 30 and it all changed, Ray.
Oh, you were working with me for how many months now? That kind of checks out.
That'll
makes
do
sense
it.
Why you going gray?
You know.
Sorry about that.
That, work, baby, million things. And now all of a sudden it's like, I was just in the bathroom this past break and I was like, man, they're really starting to poke through, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if that's one of the things I'm afraid of if I go clean shave. When they all start coming back out, you know?
Oh yeah, I guess that could be it. So you're really trying to protect yourself here.
Not really necessarily that. It's because it's just been my look for a long time. Yeah. Christy likes it, so that's
a positive.
Always a positive. Because I don't even let it grow too much.
Yeah.
Like the last time I ever let it really grow was when Cooper was in the NICU, and I didn't think about shaving.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the last time I let it really come out. But yeah, starting to see some more grays, man. So
that's not great with the grays, but you know, I was having this conversation with my brother. I was with him the other night at the Union game actually, because there was a bald guy on Pachuca.
Okay.
And just like, oh look, because it was like one of those like really bald, but like like it's kind of like head reflecting like type bald, where and our dad is lost his fair share of his hair,
right?
And like my brother's like, what, like. Why would you make a joke about someone being bald? It could be you. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pretend like I don't check in the mirror every day to see if the hairline's going back. But like, I've also accepted it at this point.
So are you going, once it starts happening, are you going to try to survive as long as you can with it?
Yeah.
Or are you shaving?
Oh, I'm trying to survive.
I'll go Bruce Willis.
No, I can't. I'll
take the razor and I'll go full shave.
I think my dad's done a solid job with the remaining hair of keeping the hair, looking like it's looking presentable on that one.
Okay.
So I'm going to probably try something similar to what he's tried to pull off. I don't think I could go.
I might go clean shave.
I can't go. No. And if I do that, then I'm growing a beard.
Okay. You'll let it grow out.
Which I mean, you've seen it. It happens pretty quickly for me.
You got good genetics when it comes to the beard growing.
Yeah. I can't do the scruff because within like 3 or 4 days,
it's back.
Yeah. It's annoying. So my appearance fluctuates.
Okay.
Which works here. Because like I say, sometimes people think, like, oh, they let some college kid run around in here. Like, because my appearance changes so often, you can't get used to seeing me. So it's like, oh, who's this young kid in here again?
That's a good point. Yeah, or if you let the beard grow even bigger, you're an established radio veteran.
That's right. Well, the beard was a big key for 18 to 21-year-old Ray.
For
just because I look so much older and people respected me more. That's what it was.
Yeah, you were respected by the bouncers.
Respected more by people in the city.
Yeah. It's a good work out of you. All right. So you texted me yesterday, just a topic idea, the player that you never gave up on. Now, I thought this was in response to Ben Simmons, because he was the guy that I kept on like, he's got to do it. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. And you later find out that he doesn't have the chops to do it. Like, he just doesn't have the heart to do it, or the will to do it, or whatever. Like, he ran away. He ran away from that dunk against the Hawks and has since continued to run. He's never really looked back. He has played a handful of games, and he's done for the season again, and it's still this nerve damage that nobody can really find an answer to because it's probably all fake. But Ben Simmons and Carson Wentz were like the first two players that came to my mind, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that would give those two answers. That would be the guy that you never gave up on. You thought that they would turn it around. I thought Wentz, if you gave him a legit wide receiver and not Jalen Reagor, who knows what would have ended up happening, but clearly he's had his issues, which is why he goes from the Eagles to the Colts to the Commanders to the Rams, and we'll see where he goes next after this. Who is this player that made you think about this?
I'm actually kind of wishing that the topic had been.
You wish I didn't even bring it up.
Yeah, well, no, I wish that the genesis was that. Like, that's you had so much more of an intelligent thought that mine is now just kind of dumb. Well, it was dumb originally, but now it's super dumb. So Tom Alvord yesterday sent me a tweet from Philly's tailgate.
Okay.
With Junior Marte's spring numbers.
God,
and I was turning this more into a conversation of like the one person you believed in, despite not really anything being there, and you just believe to believe, and you took it as the actual talent thing.
Yeah.
And now this has become a little bit of a different conversation, because I literally did. I remember Ricky and I were. It was Ricky, Tom, and I that did the Authentic Expo on like a Saturday morning, like during Philly's alumni weekend.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and Ricky and I had a solid like 10-minute back and forth about Junior Marte, and I think he got DFA'd like maybe like
a couple days later.
Yeah, like a couple days later, and Ricky came in the one day and was like, I told you.
Try telling you.
Like, what about your boy here? Like, pretty much, I pitched in the bigs. Like, come on, man. Like, but Marte, like, the stuff for me, I like keep looking at. I'm like, come on,
high 90s fastball.
Like, you can put it together.
Yeah.
So I was ready to believe again on him. This was more a conversation about like the guy that you think could actually take a step into something more than the guy that we know has something and needs to put it all together.
So I did not have this with any of these two guys, but Vince Velasquez and Nick Pivetta were for a lot of people.
For a lot of people.
And now, does that count? Because Velasquez, wasn't Velasquez a first-round pick from Houston, and the Phillies ended up trading him when they did Ken 100 Miles Giles trade? I forget where he was drafted, but I know he was a high prospect in Houston when they made that trade. And he was a guy with the upper 90s fastball and had all kinds of stuff, and he was, he was a starter and could go deep into games and blah, blah, blah. I watched those guys pitch. Like, yeah, it's great that you could throw 100, but if you're throwing 100 right over the middle of the plate, that doesn't matter in Major League Baseball. They couldn't spot a fastball. Now, Pivetta obviously got better leaving Philadelphia. Maybe that was more so a Chris Young issue where his only coaching was if you have 2 strikes on the batter, throw a high fastball, which is one way to get batters out. But if you're not hitting your spot and that high fastball ends up being belt high, it's going to be a home run.
Not great.
Yeah, no, not great. All right, so from that level of things, like the
up and coming, this is the time they're going to put it together.
I don't know.
There's no one from a decade of postseasonless baseball that, like, one point you were like, yeah, this is the guy.
Well, there were guys that I liked, and then I quickly found out they weren't going to put it together. Like, I liked Aaron Altair at first. I thought, all right, he's a right-handed bat that could play outfield, and, maybe he can be like that Jason Worth type of player, not as good as Worth, but maybe he can kind of play like that where he could swipe some bags, he could hit 20 bombs, he could play a decent outfield, and no, he ended up being terrible and not even playing in Major League Baseball anymore. Now he's in the KBO. But I quickly found that out, like watching him play more and more as the seasons went on. I guess Michael Franco a little bit, just because he had the pop and he had a decent glove. But then once you start seeing that the guy can't touch a slider low and away every single time, then you quickly found that out too. Like, I think one of my biggest issues is I give up pretty quickly with the not highly respected prospect. I hung on with Simmons and Wentz, but the lower level prospect that had like a blip and then quickly fell off, that's, I kind of lose patience, which maybe shame on me, I guess. I don't know, even though they end up stinking a lot of the times. All right, so momentarily going to be joined by Todd Herremans. Jason Kelce, we know he retired on Monday officially, had the incredible press conference that was just so well written and so well thought out, and it was just 40 minutes of emotion, and all of us Eagles fans just completely celebrated it. And then you saw on his New Heights podcast there was the 5-minute montage of videos from people celebrating Jason Kelce's career and congratulating him on what he was able to accomplish, and now the next stage in life. Shaq pointed out in his video, like, now you're just a regular guy like me, get used to it. But I wanted to, take the time today to talk to people that knew Jason Kelce more than the way we did from afar. And why not go with somebody that he played with? And then, of course, the great Todd Herremans. Todd, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
What's up, Andrew? How's it going, dude?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. Is Florida treating you well? Are you going to the Phillies game today?
We are. We're on the way there right now, actually. Beautiful sunshine. Going to be hot at the ballpark, but I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Well, you enjoy yourself, and I appreciate you coming on your drive over to Baycare. First, I just talk about the speech itself on Monday, the 40-minute, beautiful speech that he made before he announced his official retirement. I mean, take us behind the curtain a little bit. That's just Jason Kelce, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, well, we know that Jason is not a one-hit wonder when it comes to speeches at this point.
Right.
He's just, I just think he's always so genuine and thoughtful with his words that everybody can resonate with what he says, even if you haven't experienced everything that he has. And he puts it in words for a way for everybody to grasp and get. So, I think that he wrote a perfect speech. He was able to channel probably not everything that he wanted, because I imagine that's probably hard to do, but I think he got, the majority of his thoughts out, and how much the city and the organization and just everybody and everything meant to him along this, 13-year historied career. It's just been a phenomenal to watch, because I've watched the last half of it, and I was able to be part of the first half of it, which was awesome. So, as you finish playing, it's just so cool to see how guys develop that were, a little younger when you were with them and stuff. And, there's that core of guys that the Eagles had with Fletch and BG and Kelce and Lane and stuff. And I talk to people about this sometimes, how they've really made this transition from, me being someone that I've been proud of to watch how they develop and stuff, and then the maturity and then the way that they handle themselves and stuff. It's almost they've transitioned to a point where I actually look up to them now and how they handle themselves. So it's just really cool to see.
Yeah, it really is, and you got to see him come in as a rookie. You'd been with the Eagles for 6 seasons before Jason Kelce even got there, and then you guys played with each other for a handful of seasons. Did you see him becoming the person that he became when you first met him? Obviously, I get it. It's when you're a rookie in the NFL, I'm sure you're looking at a lot of bright lights, and you're getting used to just playing, period, before everything else. But when you first met Jason, and after a couple of years playing with him, did you see him becoming the player and the person that he became?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a really good eye to be able to see a 13-year career where you're a cornerstone of a program and stuff, ahead of that actually happening. But, a couple things that did stand out when Jason first got to the Eagles, and a lot of times rookies come in and they seem to be, worried about becoming well-liked by some of the vets and stuff like that. And that wasn't necessarily how Jason approached it. He kind of came in and He was there to be, I guess, in current terms, he was about his business. He was about to stand on his business and just take care of stuff. And he formed a great relationship with Howard Mudd. They spent a lot of time together. And I know that Howard Mudd was a huge believer in Jason before we even drafted him. And from what I remember, I think he stood up in the draft room and told Andy to take him and said he's going to be the cornerstone of your franchise for the next, however long you want him to be here. And he was absolutely right. So I think that's one thing that stood out is Jason was just very work-oriented and there for the job and not necessarily there for the experience like it seems like some guys are.
We're speaking to Todd Herremans on the Comcast Business Hotline. Todd, like you said, it's not his first big speech that he made for Philadelphia to hear and to celebrate. Obviously, we know the Super Bowl speech and, of course, his retirement on Monday. But tell us who Jason Kelce is behind the scenes, right? Who he is as a person, because we know him as a great guy in the community. We know him that he's a guy that can walk down the street and he feels comfortable here. But you know him on more of a personal level. You're literally friends with the guy. So what is Jason like outside of football?
Well, I think that what he portrays and what people see him as on the football field is why people love him, because that's who he is off the football field. He's just a genuine person. He's very thoughtful, and he's down to earth. Like people can really relate to Jason, and a lot of people view themselves as an underdog, and that whole thing kind of took off, and he just owned it. And he said in his speech he wishes now more than ever that he was an underdog, but I don't know if that's really an option for him at this point.
Did you talk to him leading up to the retirement? Because I know he said in his press conference on Monday that he did talk to a lot of people about this, and we know this has been a conversation over the last couple of years because he's re-upping on one-year deals. I'm guessing you knew about this before it officially happened on Monday?
No. People keep asking me, do you think he's going to play? Do you think he's going to play? And I was just kind of like under the lines that if he wasn't in a training camp when training camp started, that he might be hanging it up. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if he was going to make a final decision the way he did, but I kind of had a feeling once he called a press conference that was it. I felt like if he was going to come back for another year, he might have done another keg video or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I think he's been kicking this idea around for quite a while, and just I remember, if you guys recall the documentary that they had.
Yep.
I think that whole thing was started as trying to be a transition out of playing, and then they were going to kind of follow him as how he was transitioning, but ended up not being done, and then they just kept the cameras on, and it turned into, this wonderful documentary.
Yeah, I actually spoke with the director. He came on before it dropped on Amazon or Apple TV, and he said, yeah, we thought when we first did this, it was going to be the retirement year. And then, obviously, as they didn't win the Super Bowl, and he wanted to try it one more year, and ended up just being a great documentary. But I'll be honest, when I watched it, immediately I was like, all right, this has to be the last year, just based off of the feeling of the documentary itself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when they had us come in, they had us come in and play cards.
Yeah.
For the documentary or whatever, and he was just kind of picking our brain, asking a bunch of guys like, "What's it like? What do you do now?" And I don't know, we must have scared him back into the game. So,
well, thank you for one more year of All-Pro center Jason Kelce. It just sucks that it played out the way that it did. So, what is life now for Todd Herremans? You're going to a Phillies game, which is awesome. I'm jealous. I was down there earlier in the week, so I can't complain too much. But what's going on in the life of Todd Herremans?
Well, life for Todd Herremans is pretty relaxed right now. A lot of family time. I joke all the time right now. I'm actually in a spousal support mode. So our significant others and our spouses support us so much through our career and stuff that it's kind of nice now that I'm done playing football. I can kind of flip it and be on the other side of supporting. So my wife has started a a real estate business called Birds Nesting.
Oh, cool.
And it kind of stems from our experience when we moved to Indianapolis for the last year of my career. And her just finding herself in a new city with, not very many resources to reach out to and stuff. And then after our time there was done, we just kind of looked back at it and thought that it could have been so much better if we had somebody to kind of guide us as soon as we signed with them. So what she's doing is she's trying to create that network here in Philadelphia for athletes, executives, coaches that are just signing to the team with the Eagles, the Sixers, the Flyers, the Union, and help them settle in and their families as soon as they get here so that they can focus on the field and not have to worry about all the other stuff that comes with it. So.
I love that. Well,
I got my pom poms in my hands.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's your turn, man. It's your turn. But that's awesome. Congratulations to your wife for doing that, and again, congratulations to you on an incredible career that you had. And I'm sure you'll be hanging out with Jason at some point during this off season. So enjoy that, man.
Funny,
and go ahead.
I joked with him that I'd love to get together and have a couple beers. I know you're a busy man, and he said, "Yeah, that sounds great." He goes, "I am pretty busy." And I said, "Well, when you're retired, you're only as busy as you want to be."
Well, when do you ask to meet, Taylor? Do you ask
Me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nah.
No, that's not for you.
That's not my world.
What when you were watching? I'm guessing you watched the AFC Championship game, and you see him parading around with his shirt off, right? Jason being Jason, and there's Taylor Swift right there. What were you thinking about?
I was thinking this is perfect. This is the perfect scenario, and that's Jason being Jason.
That's awesome. Todd, listen, man, I appreciate it.
Anybody.
I appreciate you coming
problem,
on, man.
dude.
Enjoy the Phillies game today, all right?
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
There he is, Todd Herremans on the Comcast Business Hotline. Jason being Jason. I wanted to have somebody on that play with him and knew of him at a much different level than you and I, Ray, and everybody that we've talked to so far this week. And that's just Jason Kelce. That's awesome. He doesn't fake it. That's just his life, and he also lives it to the fullest, right? He probably would be, if he didn't make the NFL, he's probably somebody that's at a game with his shirt off anyway. But because he's Jason Kelce and had a lot of success doing what he did, he just is having fun with it. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It is. It is really cool. And it's nice, you continually get the person that you saw, the person that you heard is the person that he is.
Right, I love
think we
that.
continue to get that. That's the overwhelming sentiment of just about everything about him is that he hasn't faked it with you once. He's been just genuine with you, despite what Jay.
Yeah, I was about to say, tell that to our man Jay in West Philly, who believed it was all an act. Everyone's saying how that's exactly who Jason Kelce is. He's a genuine human being. That's awesome. All right, so coming up next, I want to thank Todd Herremans again for coming on. Coming up next, we'll reset what we've talked about today. But also, I'm going to open up a topic that's been on my mind since yesterday. And it's about who we are as Philadelphia fans and how much we're changing and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or whether or not you like it or not. Because we are changing. That's a fact. But do you like it or not? We'll talk about that next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers win in Florida. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by Silk. Feel planty good. Shop wherever you find groceries. Silk's delicious plant-based beverages help bring a daily dose.
975thefanatic.com. Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 11:49 on the Midday Show. Right here, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. Thanks to Todd Herremans, who joined us last segment to talk about Jason Kelce and his retirement on Monday. You'll be able to hear that again on 97.5thefanatic.com. Going to reset the show with what we were getting into before we brought Todd on, but a couple of things that I want to get into. There's two things. First, just because a lot of people are tweeting it at me, because you guys know my ties with the university. A interesting story coming out of the world of college basketball as the game between Temple and UAB was flagged by the gambling community because the game was a 2-point spread in favor of UAB, and it jumped up to like 8 right before tip-off, and people were wondering what the hell was going on because there was no injuries or there was nothing to make the line swing as much as it did. And now there's theories going on as to why that happened. I'm sure you can understand what those theories are. I'm not going to go much deeper into it because there's some situations that we've talked about in recently, like the name Carter Hart. I didn't really talk about that until stuff came out. I'm going to wait until more information comes out before I talk about this. Obviously, we talk about sanctity of games all the time because of betting. There's, the funny stories of the script in the NFL, right? If this is to be true, and nobody's accusing anybody specific. It's just something that's been brought to light that a game got flagged because of the crazy line movement. Nobody is being, accused, like not one specific player or coach or anybody, which is why I'm not talking much more into it, which is why I haven't even brought it up in the first 2 hours of the show. But, I've gotten a lot of people tweeting it at me saying, hey, are you going to address this? I'll just kind of leave it at that until there's more information. It would be wrong for me to say anything, right? But if something were to come of this, yeah, it's pretty damning story. But nothing's out there right now except for the line change big time. Temple got crushed by UAB. They lost by 28 points. And now it's just kind of being discussed. People have theories. I haven't seen anything specific. People are just talking about it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, the other thing. Right, I got to ask you a question about this. So Drew Tranquill is a linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Won a Super Bowl just a couple months ago, right? Or a month ago, they won the Super Bowl. So Drew Tranquill tweeted out last night, unfinished business, #Chiefs Kingdom, let's go. And there's two things I need to react to. Number one, unfinished business. They've won 3 Super Bowls in recent years. Can you use the unfinished business line when you keep on winning?
Bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I'll be honest with you.
Like, unfinished business is winning the AFC Championship game and posting a celebratory picture, but the Super Bowl is still to be played. Like, to me, that's unfinished business. Not, we won again, but I'm coming back for more. I don't know if you can go unfinished business.
Yeah, this whole three-peat conversation already is starting to irk me. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it. Like, oh, yeah, we're going to be the first to... You know what? You've won 2 in a row. Be happy.
Be happy.
Shut up.
Now, the other thing. So Drew Tranquill played... Last year was his first year with the Chiefs. It was his 5th season in the NFL. He played for the Chargers for 4. He got drafted by the Chargers. That's where he started his career. And his final year with the Chargers, he had a nice season, 5 sacks for a linebacker. We would have taken that, right? Would have been nice. Signs with the Chiefs for a 1-year deal. I don't know if Drew Tranquill is a household name nationally, right? I talked about this with Zach Wheeler the other day. Like, I feel like we love Zach Wheeler. I don't know if Angels fans know who Zach Wheeler is, right? Which is astonishing because of how good he is. Drew Tranquill's a starting linebacker. So his tweet, he also posted a photo after winning the Super Bowl of him just like, yeah, standing next to Travis Kelce. Did he post the photo making sure Kelce was in it for clout? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
1,000%.
That was my first thought.
1,000%.
He could have posted the photo of himself, which I'm sure there's plenty. He could have posted a photo with another linebacker. Could have posted a photo with Harrison Butker. Travis Kelce.
Oh, yeah. Easily. I mean, let's not act like people don't do it all the time, every other walk of life. You know? Every single person that posted from FanFest last year posted one that had Nick Foles in it.
Oh,
You know, people, wow, look, Nick Foles. You know, that's...
I posted from FanFest and did not post Nick Foles.
Yeah, you bragged about fist pumping him.
I did fist pump him while I was wearing a sumo suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's different. You know, you went the sumo suit. That was your way of getting engagement. That fit more with the brand there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're obviously going to post with the, with the more clout teammate. You know, you're not. Hey, can you find that picture of me and the third stringer?
Well, that's what I love. No, but it's his moment, right? So like, he's getting a contract. Good for him. He's celebrating it, but he's like, I shouldn't use that picture. Let me find one. I know I have one with Travis, the guy that everybody knows.
Well, also, like, the ones that probably are brought to light the most are the ones that have Travis in them. Like, if you see a picture of yourself, like, for example, a picture of me somewhere, there's not a good chance that the picture of just me is going to be used. Now you put me, next to Tyrese Maxey.
Tyrese Maxey.
Wow, both of our minds went to a Sixers game. Like, there you go.
And two guys that aren't playing.
Yeah. There's some engagement. For example, when the Warriors were in town, I was walking around down near the court.
Yes.
And John Clark was taking a video of Steph Curry sign all the autographs, and I got stuck in the middle of that wave.
Oh, nice.
So naturally, of course, I had to find myself in the video, screenshot it, and I sent that one out because, like, look, that's hilarious. It's the greatest shooter of all time in Steph Curry, courtside at the Sixers game.
Yeah, you're the greatest shooter of all time.
Correct.
And Steph Curry. Yeah.
Yes. And it was once one of those things. You know, you always want to find that the person that has more clout than you.
That's the person you want to use in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we all do this. It's every walk of life. This is just what social media has done to us. That's what you have to do.
So congratulations to linebacker Drew Tranquil that not everybody knows, but he posted a photo of himself and Travis Kelce.
Maybe he's trying to get on new heights.
He might be. You never know. He might be.
Maybe Taylor has some famous friends. Maybe he's like.
Well, and my first thought is, there's the Swifties. So once the photo goes semi-viral, the Swifties might start retweeting it because Travis Kelce's in it.
That's a good point.
That's what went through my mind. It's not even just the Travis Kelce aspect of it. It's the Taylor Swift aspect of it.
He's going to be regarded as the best linebacker of all time.
Absolutely.
To a niche group of people.
There are Taylor Swift Eagles fans that are probably like, how come we didn't?
Listen, I honestly think we have not been good enough at weaponizing the Swifties in getting things done that we want to see done.
Why? She's a fraud. She doesn't like the Eagles.
Can you
she doesn't like the Eagles. I know. I don't want to
no.
weaponize her.
We're not
like
weaponizing her. We're weaponizing the Swifties. Okay, they were making edits for Jason Kelce's retirement. They put their energy into this. If we could get them to put their energy into Howie paying a linebacker,
yes,
or Howie getting you a safety, or something like that, that'd be fantastic. They are an untapped resource of pressure. The Swifties, they get it. They get stuff done. We need them to push this Eagles team to do something.
So
maybe cornerback in the first round.
So you want the Swifties to make Howie do a splashy offseason?
No. That's not
what you're telling me. You said linebacker was the first one you said.
Yes, I realized what I said.
You said you talking out of both sides of your mouth.
I don't want Saquon.
You're a hypocrite.
Can I say it? Can I just say it? I don't want Saquon.
So you're leading me into what the initial topic was, and I don't think you even meant to do it, but I appreciate you doing it, hypocrite. So the question that I started the show off with was for the Eagles, and I would love to hear from you at 610-632-0975. My question was, what would you rather the Eagles do? Do you want them to have the fun off season where we're excited, splashy? Wow, look at that name. Look at that name. Dream team. Or do you want them to continue to do what they have been doing? Not just for like the last 5 years, for 24 years, you could make the case. that's trenches, both offensive and defensive, making sure the quarterback's comfortable. Well, nowadays, because back when 5 was around, they couldn't care less about making him comfortable with the receivers he threw to. And pay a corner, right? Which they did last year. They paid James Bradbury, just didn't work. But that means ignoring safety, ignoring linebacker, and ignoring running back. So the reason why I even thought about this topic was there is smoke around the Saquon Barkley thing. Whether you want him or not, there is smoke. There was a report from the New York Post where both sides have a mutual interest. The Eagles, according to the guy from the New York Post, have interest in Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has interest in coming to Philadelphia. It's got so much smoke that Tiki Barber on his show this morning was talking about how if Saquon signed with the Eagles, it would kill his legacy with the Giants, right? Like, it's being talked about in New York right now. Giants fans are worried that Saquon Barkley will, A, leave, and B, go to the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that is still, on paper, dangerous. But Saquon Barkley and the Eagles is not something that happens, right? It's not what the Eagles do. It's not what Howie Roseman does. He does not pay big money for a running back. But I think we can all agree, whether you think that's something they would do or not, it would be fun. It would be splashy. 53% of you on our poll 975 Middays want the fun and splashy offseason, and 47% of you say stick with what works. Now, Ray is of the 47%, even though you kind of just talked about the Swifties going after, the splashy players.
Does it have to be splashy for linebacker? I mean, this is not like this.
Patrick Queen's splashy.
Yeah, I'm not talking. I don't need them to. We don't need them to pressure into Patrick Queen.
All right, let me get.
No, just get me someone. You know what I'm saying? Like the middle of the tiers, the ones that aren't just picking up anyone for the sake of having bodies out there, and actually picking up someone that's worth something to this defense.
So there's 12 linebackers on this list. So I've on NFL.com put out the 101. Couldn't do 100. The 101 NFL free agents of 2024 ranked by position. So there's 12 linebackers they have on here of note. Frankie Louvu is number 1, who's a guy that I've been intrigued by when it first was written in ESPN before the season had even ended. They were already mentioning Frankie Louvu, but he's on top, which means he's probably going to get paid a lot of money. Number 2 on this list is Patrick Queen. So Louvu and Queen would be splashy linebacker signings. Jordan Brooks from the Seahawks is 3rd. Levante David is 4th, which was it Bill Barnwell that said Levante David to the Eagles makes sense, even though he's 34 years old. Splashy name, but I wouldn't consider that a splashy signing. A 34-year-old linebacker.
Sounds good. Then I'm in on it.
All right, so you're in on Levante David.
That's what officially got me in on Levante David. If I could circumvent your rules and still get something of value, I'd be concerned about the age. I'm still concerned.
By the way, Drew Tranquill is on this list, but he's now signed.
Yeah, the Chiefs are just going to run it back, and we're all just going to have to deal with it.
So this one's interesting because he comes in 7th on this list, and that's Devin White. I think Devin White's a good player. So they write a second-team All-Pro when the Bucs won the Super Bowl. White is a physically gifted linebacker who often freelanced and missed assignments in coverage this past season, which I'm sure didn't sit well with head coach Todd Bowles. He is a very talented player. I wonder what his price tag is. Now, this is 7th on the list of 12, so he would be in that middle tier, which is what you just said you wanted. Then it was Bobby Wagner, Willie Gay Jr., Josie Jewell from the Broncos, Anthony Jennings from the Patriots, and Blake Cashman. I don't know, man. Splashy would be one of those first 2 names, Frankie Louvu and Patrick Queen.
So I'll take any of the other, next 5.
All right. And then running backs. Let's go back up to the backs.
Zach Moss it is.
Moss not even in here. They only have 8 names on here.
Does it crack the top 101?
No, he does not.
All right. That's a Howie name if I've ever seen one.
It is. Honestly, when we ran that poll the other day, you and I both voted Zach Moss over Swift. It was Swift, Henry, and Eckler. I don't think Saquon was even in that.
No, Saquon was not in that.
And now all of a sudden there's smoke there.
Would you rather the Eagles sign Saquon or literally any other back? I think we would probably end up with a higher percentage of people with Saquon than any other back.
Yes. A, because he's very talented. B, because people know him. Like
Right.
Josh Jacobs is very talented. He's available.
Yes.
But here are your top 8 running backs via free agency from NFL.com. Saquon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Austin Eckler, J.K. Dobbins, and Devin Singletary. Dobbins could make sense because that could be a 1-year prove-it deal coming off of the ACL or Achilles injury. But you just did that with Rashad Penny. Literally, we just did that. They signed him to nothing, and then he doesn't play. How many snaps did he probably? He didn't even take 50 snaps this year. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I'm going to get the numbers for you here. But, yeah, it's definitely not a lot. It's definitely not
So Dobbins would make sense, but we just went through that.
Can Dobbins pass block, though? Rashad Penny, was a Jalen Hurts risk.
Right.
You put him out there on the field, it's like, well, you're either running the football or Jalen Hurts is running for his life. He had 11 carries and played, oh, come on. Seriously, we don't have the snap count here.
He didn't play 50 snaps. There's no way.
What in the world is wrong with this world?
Because I feel like every time he went on the field, he got the ball. Like, it was almost like, all right, Penny's in the game. They're going to hand it off to him.
Yeah, we got to give this guy the ball to justify his appearance here.
So the write-up for J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins tore his Achilles in Week 1 last season, the latest in a string of significant injuries for the 25-year-old. He still has top 10 back potential if he can stay healthy, but he may not be at his best until late in the season or in 2025. Dude, that's Eagles all over it, man. Let's not pay this guy a lot of money. He's got to prove himself. As Eagles all over it, or return to Baltimore.
Dobbins, Gainwell. No, because Baltimore, I honestly could see Baltimore doing the splash.
Well, when we said, I remember Henry's name got linked to the Ravens a couple weeks ago, and we were like, oh, that could be dangerous.
Yeah, good luck,
Because you can't just load up the box against Derrick Henry the way that they did in Tennessee when Malik Willis was playing quarterback and Ryan Tannehill was playing quarterback and Will Levis was playing quarterback. You can't do that against Lamar.
Can't believe all three of them were on the same team.
Yes. They all played last year, too.
Yeah.
They all started. I think they all started the game last year. So Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, to me, is the splashy running back. You don't want any of those guys. But I know if we got breaking news from Shefty at some point this offseason, Saquon Barkley signs a 3-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles, you know people would go nuts. And they will ignore the 47% of people that are voting no, stick with what's worked, they would immediately change their mind and get excited for it. I'll get excited for it. I'll be honest, and I think it's not the right approach, but I would be excited for it because radio me still would be.
I mean, yeah, I saw I forget who did the graphic of who's stopping this offense.
Right,
Jalen Hurts.
I saw that, and they had Saquon on there.
Saquon. It's like, okay.
Yeah, they already put Saquon in there.
Yeah, my favorite responses, of course, were Nick Sirianni, but. Who's stopping this offense for this group? Obviously, we talked about Madden earlier. It's a fun Madden roster to put together. And for a year, here's the thing. And this is where you might be able to get me to talk out of both sides of my mouth for the excitement part of this. The idea of a year of it happening would be enticing for people. If you sign that 3-year deal, we're only really thinking about this 1 year. If you could put it together for 1 year, you get a Super Bowl out of it, anything's worth it.
Right, exactly.
The issue is, this is a luxury move for a team that is not necessarily in a luxury place. The one argument I gave to people a year ago when they were doing the whole Bijan thing is okay, if you really feel like it's that much of a luxury, fine. I don't view it that way. But if you feel like they are that good of a team that you can just draft the running back and neglect for that luxury position for a year.
But it was also a luxury
with the pick, having the extra pick.
It's also it was a first round. It would have been a first-round pick, so it's not this monster contract that you have to pay these other guys.
But even so, because resources are resources, whether it be money or whether it be draft picks, all of it comes into play when you're building a team. You're putting resources at a position that most teams would not.
Right. Well, and the Eagles have shown you they would not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if you guys really believe that last year, fine. But I don't. That's not the way I operate. That's not the way I would operate if I was running the football team. I understand the excitement for people. It's just there's so much more you have to do on the other side of the ball to throw $8 to $10 million at the running back position for just one player.
I'm leaning fun and splashy. I know football guy tells me not to, but come on, man. Let's have some fun, damn it. It's March 8th.
I don't want to.
Let me literally, you're trying to squash my excitement in March.
Absolutely.
This is March, baby. Come on.
Yeah. Hit the March Madness.
610-632-0975. The poll is now 52.5 say fun and splashy, 47.5 say stick with works. The other thing, I want to open this up now for the remainder of the show. I got some other stuff that I'm going to get to as the show goes on, but another talking point that I have today. It's something that's been on my mind since yesterday. So, speaking of polls, we ran a poll yesterday about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is a free agent. And it's already been talked about a potential return to Philadelphia. And we played a clip from last year when he was on his GTA stream. He was streaming himself playing GTA, and somebody asked him what's the thing he disliked most about Philadelphia, and he said the people. They're bleeping obnoxious, right? And yet, Eagles fans want him back, which is totally fine. I'm not saying you guys are morons. Like, no, it's totally fine. I would take him back because he's a very good player when healthy, which is a big part of it. But normally, if a player said anything negatively about us, that person would be an enemy for life, okay? People have said far less and have been an enemy for life. Sean Rodriguez, a nobody, called us entitled, and he's still an enemy for life in Philadelphia. He straight up said, you people are bleeping obnoxious, okay? And yet we want him back. So we had a caller yesterday that called in and said it would be more soft of us to not welcome him back. Instead of it's soft to welcome him back, it's more soft to not welcome him back because we can't take it when somebody says something back to us when we are always talking smack about players who aren't playing well, even though I don't remember anybody talking smack about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, honestly. So something I want to talk about as the show continues. I think it's a fact that we have changed. I think the Super Bowl changed all of us, right? Like, I think we've all come to terms with that being accurate, that the Super Bowl changed all of us. My question is it a good thing or a bad thing that we may be getting softer? And I know you're probably like, where's this guy getting at? Giving Trey Turner a standing ovation to me was something we would never do. Right. But it worked. I spoke with Jason Stark when I was down in Clearwater. Trey Turner still believes that standing ovation worked. Last week, we played the clip from Darius Slay and Steven Nelson, and people were angry about it and said they wanted to boo louder. Well, if they're already upset by it and they're being honest that they're upset by it, wouldn't you want to change a little bit to try to make the life of the athlete a little bit easier in Philadelphia, or do you just not care because of how much money they're making? So, if we are getting soft, because when people say the word soft, it's usually in a negative way. Oh, we're getting soft. Is that necessarily a bad thing? For those of you who complain about it, is it really a bad thing? It's an open-ended conversation, whichever side you're on. I would love to hear from you because I don't necessarily know what's good or bad. I do think we should hold players more accountable than what a lot of people do, which I'll talk about more next. But the idea that we are getting soft, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We'll talk about it more next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers win it late. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know there's a better way to do things, like bundling your home and auto insurance with Allstate.
It is a Friday, Ray. It is a Fanatic Friday. Fanatic Friday is presented by Pumpman Philly. For 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement, count on Pumpman Philly, the guys to know to fix your flow.
It's a payday.
It's a payday. And our 12 o'clock hour brought to us by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. It was funny during the break because this is my Tyrone break. When I go out there, I see Ty. And then usually it's the next break when I see Jen and Ricky getting set for the best show ever. And Tyrone saw a story on Twitter that I was meaning to get to this segment, but I'm pushing it off till next segment because I opened up the soft or not soft conversation a little later than I previously scheduled on the trusty show sheet. But yes, it's something that we're going to be talking about because it's something that you and I, Ray, talked about like the day before or the day after we talked about it. Because people are just dumb. I'll say, like, it's sad, but I don't necessarily feel bad. And that's very awful of me. But it's one of those, what did you expect was going to happen? That's a tease. All right. I would love to get your thoughts on this, Ray. And the people as well at 610-632-0975. So yesterday, the Are We Getting Soft conversation was imprinted in my mind when the caller called in yesterday and said it would be more soft to not welcome back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson just because he said something about us. Now, I do believe, let me ask you, do you believe that we have gotten softer as a city since the Eagles won the Super Bowl, yes or no?
100%.
Do you believe it's necessarily a bad thing that we have gotten softer?
Not always.
Not always. Thank you. So the Trey Turner standing ovation was obviously a beautiful moment, and it worked. And Turner himself has talked to people saying that it worked. Jason Stark, who joined me earlier this week, said that Trey Turner still believes that worked. And that's a beautiful thing, right? I also don't think we should do standing ovations for every single player when somebody's struggling because at some point it won't work. And if it doesn't work, then what are we going to do, right? Like, if it doesn't work, you can't just go back to booing louder or giving a standing ovation every time the person comes up to bat or goes to take a shot or goes to take a snap or whatever, right? But I do believe, like, there's a fine line of the getting soft and the still being tough on players thing. Because I do think some people are overly protective of some players. I've said it a million times. Jalen Hurts can do no wrong in this city for people. And if the guy's struggling, like, we can be critical of it and not just blame Brian Johnson and just blame Nick Sirianni and just blame the receivers or just blame the offensive line. Like, sometimes he himself may struggle in a game. The leadership conversation that we had earlier this week, it's being reported that he needs to take on a bigger leadership role. But then there's a lot of people that are like, oh, no, you can't do that. Don't put too much on the plate of Jalen Hurts. And I go, on. Since when are we, like, so protective of a franchise quarterback? Because I remember the days of Donovan McNabb getting crushed for absolutely everything. People still talk negatively about Donovan McNabb because he never won a Super Bowl, even though they got to the NFC Championship as many times as they did. Same with Andy Reid. And look what ended up happening with Andy Reid. Once he left here, he won 3 Super Bowls and maybe counting, right? So when it comes to the soft thing, like, should we continue to trend in the direction that we're trending, Ray, or should we try to find a middle ground? Because I don't want to always have to be so defensive of everybody in Philadelphia.
I think we're finding a middle ground.
Okay.
I think we're working on finding that middle ground. I think this is a generation of people that have, like I would say our generation has done the, you know what, we're going to do the 180 here. I don't think we need to do the 180.
I don't think we need to do 180. Go 90 degree. Let's go in the middle.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to make that make sense in my head, but let's keep rolling with it.
Because
Yeah, the 90-degree time.
I've had this take on the air before where I do believe that there are a lot of people in our generation that are doing that because, man, Philadelphia gets such a bad rep. Like, if I do the opposite, maybe we won't get ripped by national media, or maybe players will want to come here and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just feel like we shouldn't be – I'm not saying we got to be mean. But,
No.
like when Darius Slay says what he has to say last week, should we give him a standing ovation week one instead of booing him?
No, stop. Please stop that. Don't even put that thought into it. I don't want to see any of you aggregators later today trying to, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Slay, we should, make him feel comfortable. No, stop it. Don't even put that thought into the world. I think it's interesting because I think this generation that's trying to move past it, oh, yeah, we're the city, it will be a positive. We're positivity. We don't want to have tough conversations about our athletes. And then Tobias Harris scores 8 points, and it's like, well, okay, Tobias is an exception for you.
Right.
Or, we should uplift our Eagles even though but James Bradbury, we should rip him. Like, it's like, no, you can't have it this way. You can have the tough conversations about the athletes that you have while still maintaining, a little bit of a lighter tone towards the athletes than you've had before.
Yeah, well, you bring something up. Why do we treat some athletes different than others? Is it, seriously, I'm not trying to pick on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts can do no wrong for a lot of people. Why is it different for him than Joel Embiid, who can drop 70 points and people complain the next day that, well, he's not going to do in the playoffs?
Because we're 3 years into Hurts as the starter, and Hurts was the guy who came in, unexpected.
Jordan Davis is in year 2 as a starter, and people complain about Jordan Davis all the time. Is it just because the position's different?
Position's different, and year 2 of Jalen Hurts was MVP level. Year 2 of Jordan Davis was, oh, wow, he ran down Josh Allen, and then you forgot that he existed for the rest of the season.
Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level before he tore his ACL, and people wanted to run him out of town before the media did.
Folk hero. He had a folk hero backing him up.
Okay.
Yeah. First time it happens, Nick Foles wins a Super Bowl. It's like, oh, wow, that's sweet. Then second time he gets hurt, it's like, oh, wow, Nick Foles. Nick Foles basically gets a pass for the entire Saints game because Alshon Jeffrey drops
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he was going to lead us back to the promised land.
It's just funny. Wentz fumbled the ball a lot and threw terrible interceptions and took some bad sacks. And last year, not to the same extent, but Hurts did have some of those moments. That playoff game, that safety that he took was still one of the dumber plays I've ever seen.
Yes.
And he's okay. He's okay. Don't worry about him.
Who's the alternative? Part of the
but
Wentz
let's face it. There was Hurts wasn't an alternative. Okay, there were people that were give him a shot. I get it. We're always, people, we love the backup quarterback here in Philadelphia. I get that. But to me, and I think a lot of people felt the same way, if you got rid of Wentz, it was going to be a rough time. It's just the way Hurts took over that changed everything, right? It was
No. I don't even mean Hurts being the alternative to Wentz.
Oh, okay.
I mean Wentz, you start having the dialogue of Wentz, unfortunately, the situation he has is so uncanny where his backup quarterback wins the Super Bowl, doesn't just win the Super Bowl, puts together probably the 10 best quarter, the 8 best quarters of football we're ever going to see for a quarterback, in Eagles history. That's not even, I don't even think I'm overstating with that one. What he did over the 8 quarters from the Vikings to the Patriots is probably the best 8 quarters you're ever going to get for an Eagles quarterback of all time.
That might be true.
I don't think that it'll ever be topped. I don't think it'll ever be topped. So you watch that happen with him, and Wentz, banged up as he may be, and it's not his fault. He ends up, with the messed up knee in that game, the Rams game that leads him into the next season. And then the team, is kind of sputtering around in mediocrity, and then he goes down, and then, Foles is able to lead you back into the playoffs. And it's like, well, it was working with this guy. It looked like everyone liked this guy. I don't care how talented he may be. They don't seem to grab him the way they grabbed at Foles, the way they were all rallying around him. He was put in just crazy, awkward, weird, uncanny position.
It was crazy.
I do think he deserves the level of, wow, he didn't handle that well. But at the same time, there are times where I think back at it, How in the world would anyone else have handled that situation?
Thank you for saying that, because I was literally waiting for you to finish to move on to another question. Why is it when it comes to like injury or like injury-prone players, people hate that player, right? Like couldn't wait to move on from Wentz because he's always hurt, and that was before people wanted Wentz or Foles over Wentz, not just because of the 8 quarters, but also because availability is the best ability, right? Joel Embiid is still one of the more, whether you want to agree with it or not, he's one of the most talented players in NBA history at his size and what he's able to do with the basketball. But because he can't stay healthy, a lot of people, it's like nasty, the things they say about him. Like, why is that?
People just boil it down to, are you available and playing your best when it means the most to me?
Well, and he is when he's available.
Well, it means
he
the
is
most
playing at his best. Well,
that's the issue. That's the issue people have with Joel Embiid. Like Joel Embiid, for a lot of people, like, well, you're not either available at full strength or you're not playing it at your best of your capabilities when I want you to the best. Therefore, you are of no value to me. And to you, I think you are insane for those that think that way.
Yes.
I will continue to have it. I can feel myself already starting to boil it and ready to have that, because I know at some point, that someone's going to, Ray's right about that. He isn't available.
He isn't available, yeah.
That's not the point I'm trying to make, and don't you ever dare try and
It's just
try
funny
and
that, like, we pick and choose. Like, we are getting softer. To me, that's a fact. But we pick and choose what we're still nasty about. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the, like, if I were to make a list of, like, the top 5 things that we're softer for, I can't even put it into words to really think about it. But it's just crazy how Jalen Hurts can do no wrong. And this is a position that we used to be extremely critical about. Extremely critical about. Whereas now, like, and also, same breath, like Trey Turner got a standing ovation. That would never have happened. 10 years ago, that's never happening.
I think it's also a place of, we want that to be successful. Like, you want the quarterback that you paid to be the franchise guy.
Okay.
Thus, you are going to do everything in your power to try and foster the environment you think.
How come people didn't do that for Wentz? They paid him to be the franchise. He was supposed to be the 10-year quarterback. He gets paid, and the second he starts looking a little wishy-washy, which Hurts didn't look totally great last year. It was, oh my God, this contract's going to kill us. Got to get him out of here. Play Hurts.
Yeah, and listen, I that might be a change also. It might be a change in the post Super Bowl.
Right.
We might continue to evolve, because I'm starting to think about the Trey Turner thing. It's, well, you don't want an 11-year, $300 million contract to be a waste.
You don't want it to be Anthony Rendon.
Right. Let's foster this to make sure it works out. Nobody in the world was, Craig Kimbrell, poor guy, because, okay, he's not going to be here, or, some people are doing the woe is Tobias, but a lot of people are not doing the woe is Tobias because in your mind, he's not going to be here. You don't necessarily want it the same way.
What's funny? Tobias is a good guy. It's not like he's a bad dude, right? Like, he's good. Like, I think year one of Nick Castellanos, a lot of people were bothered by him because of his attitude, right? He's also got, like, the I'm too cool for school attitude, and he's struggling at the same time. Whereas Tobias Harris, he's actually, I've had the opportunity to talk to him multiple times. He's a really nice guy. But we are, I guess, because it's 5 years of it, it's exhaustion. That probably plays into it as well. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, we are definitely getting softer, but we still pick and choose what we want to still be nasty about. And, anytime an owner's not paying up, it's they're cheap, even though, like, I don't know why Josh Harris gets the hate that he gets at times. Like, he does try with the Sixers a lot. Like, has he ever done anything that pisses you off? Like Josh Harris. He's not scouting. He's just signing the dotted line pretty much. But he probably gets the most heat out of all the owners in this city.
Right now, definitely the most heat of anyone in the city. Pre this spending spree from Middleton, it was Middleton. It was a lot of pay the tax, pay the tax, pay the tax, pay the tax. Why won't they pay the tax? Right now, I guess you would probably say he gets the most. And also within the last year, I think that's changed, because I think the Flyers also came under some heat for like the direction of the team, and people started working up the flagpole there for blame. So, I guess right now you'd be the one in front of people's minds. You know, people thinking about, well, you know, I know the arena thing's obviously a thing that is right on people's mind when they start talking about, okay, what they're doing. And I mean, he's invested in terms of making, you know, the practice facility. Obviously, you know, how many coaches they've gone through. Like, he's trying to find something that works. He's paying Morty all that money. Like, I understand that.
Yeah, isn't that all you can really ask for is effort and try? Goes back to yesterday's conversation about why we love certain athletes in Philadelphia. At least the guy's trying. It just hasn't worked out.
It's also,
but you can't move on from
the
move on from. Yeah, but I don't. And Devils, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah. Some people do. You're asking me. This is always the thing. You ask me why people do. I'm giving you reasons why people do. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you putting on your thinking cap. Now, I don't know if this is baseball news, and it's not shocking because it's March 8th anyway. But Chris Young, the GM of the Texas Rangers, says it's unlikely that they are going to bring back Jordan Montgomery. Now, the fact that they're public about that, does that lower the price tag of Jordan Montgomery? The fact that the team that just won the World Series that had him on there, the fact that they're public about it, does that take a hit to Jordan Montgomery of what he won?
I mean, I think he's already taken the hit. It's March. Like, we were talking about it like when camp opened up.
Yeah, but he is still asking, Boris is still asking for NOLA years, NOLA money. I mean, I know, I get it, it's March 8th already. He wouldn't be the first player to sign late and still get close to what they want, but...
I mean, it hurts, but I think being a free agent at this point already hurts. Like, I guess the Rangers saying they're not in it right now, to me, is just publicly saying what, you know, privately I think there's been belief of not just necessarily the Rangers specifically, but teams being out of it. Like, your market changes a lot right now. Because, you know, part of this, part of the agreement with a free agent pitcher is knowing that probably on the front end you're getting the most of the production of the contract. Like we talk about Aaron Nola. Am I signing up for years 6 and 7, or am I signing up for the next 3 years?
You're signing up for the next 3 years.
Well, Jordan Montgomery right now, if you're signing up for the next 3 years, you're getting him into camp at best at this point, probably in the middle of March. And on top of that, you're going to have to ramp him up, and then that pushes him back, and that probably pushes the timeline back of him. And start of some of that production is the beginning of this season. And, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Doesn't matter how you start. Matters how you finish. I think teams would prefer to have him for 30 starts this season as compared to 25.
Right, exactly, because you know he's not playing right away if he signs today. Oh, it's just interesting.
So I think but like what you said with that, like I think it does hurt his market, but I think it's just a great sign of how hurt his market already is, because he's in a tough spot. Snell's in a tough spot. Like, some of these guys, and like I think Aaron Nola probably is thrilled with. Oh, I'm sure he is.
He's comfortable.
I got my money. I got where I wanted to be. I got my years.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have to deal with the headache of waiting this long. Because could you imagine if we were still doing the pitch? We wouldn't. They would have signed someone.
Yeah. I mean, look, we did it with Bryce Harper already. I don't know if people would ever want to do that again.
Yeah, well, and that was done before February ended. Because that was, February 28th?
Right, yeah, exactly.
So that was literally the last day
it wasn't even March yet. Yeah,
we'd be losing our mind.
It's amazing. All right, so we're going to continue all the topics that we have on. Do you want the Eagles to have a fun, splashy offseason, which is something that they don't normally do, or stick with what has worked, and that's the nuts and bolts, trenches, which has gotten you to the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. So it has worked. But I'll be honest, man, part of me wants to have some fun this offseason. Because I don't think if you sign Saquon Barkley, you all of a sudden lose. It's just not what they it's just not what they do. And then it's going to hurt other areas like defense, which was already a mess last year. But do you want the fun and splashy offseason for the Eagles, or do you want them to stick with what works? And that means, and Ray, you even said it, the second they draft an offensive lineman, Lane Johnson's replacement in the first round, you're going to be annoyed by it, but it's what they've done. It's what they've worked. So what do you want this offseason out of the Eagles? Fun and splashy, or the nitty-gritty, what has worked in the trenches? The other thing, when it comes to the fan base, we can all agree we're getting softer. But my question for you is it necessarily a bad thing? And also, why do we pick and choose our battles when it comes to being soft or when it comes to being tough against certain players Whereas a guy like Jalen Hurts, it seems like, can do whatever he wants, and we're going to always support him, which, again, I don't think that's a bad thing. But I remember Wentz's final year, everybody wanted to run him out of town. 610-632-0975. And coming up next, I mentioned at the beginning of the segment, there was a story that came out yesterday that I read last night that sent chills through my body. And it's kind of because of chills. And it kind of me not necessarily feeling bad. I feel bad, but I don't at the same time, if that makes sense. And if you're confused, well, I'll tell you about it next, because something in response to a football game that happened in very chilling temperatures. You're not stronger than the cold of the sun, man. If you're listening, any of you, wear your sunscreen when it's hot and wear layers when it's cold. I'll explain what next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
1075thefanatic.com. Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Hello. Hello.
Hell yeah.
My bad. I don't think I ever did that. What, since September? Have I ever been that late back?
No,
from
no,
return?
it was kind of alarming. I was like 15 seconds away from jumping in, but it's okay. I just a couple of hellos, dropped in a hell yeah there from Sirianni.
Back earlier than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And this was I saw Tyrone and Jen, but then I had to use the lavatory, and then I came back and I heard the music.
It's okay. You're here
Well,
now.
That's my bad.
That's all that
I'm sorry
matters.
about that.
I was scared.
Look, it's a Fanatic Friday.
I get concerned.
I know. I
Certain
appreciate-
time hits in the morning, I start to, oh man, what's going out there on the roadways?
Yeah, why isn't he
okay
here
with
yet?
Andrew?
Even though,
Yeah,
whatever.
I know, man. You've never failed to show up,
No,
but
I'm here always.
it's always going to be a problem with me.
Well, that's because you're used to me coming in like over an hour before the show, and then some days when it's like,
Right, when it's literally an hour. Like it's pretty much like a timer in my head. Like 9 o'clock hits, the alarm bells start going
why
off.
isn't Andrew here yet?
But also today, alarm bells went off.
Because I was here.
You
I
were
was
here
here before
me.
you.
You were here before me. And that's a terrifying thing too. I thought you were about to redirect me out the door. Like, hey, buddy.
I had my virtual health team that I do the interviews with.
I didn't know that.
On 97.5thefanatic.com. You can always check that out. Our Get Well Health chats that I do.
Well, it's a great thing that you do, but when I walked
Today
in,
we talked about kidney health.
I told you, let me know when you talk about the liver.
Maybe I'll try to pull a few strings and make sure we can get somebody on to talk about the livers soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Can I audience? Can I live watch?
Yes. No, we don't do that. It's not live. You could sit in the room that I recorded.
That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Live studio audience.
That's fine. All right, we're going to get back to the phones in a second. And part of the conversation will stem into this whether or not we're getting softer, because I wonder how much that helps us or hurts us. Now, speaking of soft or toughness, yeah, I'm an alpha. So,
I would say no.
something happened back in January that you and I talked about, Ray, on these airways. And we ripped the people involved, which is why I can't totally feel too bad about it. Now, I am a human being, so obviously I feel bad that it came to this. But at the same time, what did you freaking expect? You know, I was in Clearwater earlier this week, and 2 weeks before that I was in Jamaica. I see the people with like the pink skin because they probably didn't put on sunscreen. And then the rest of your trip's miserable. Trust me, I did that when I was 18. It was spring break. I went down. My aunt and uncle live in Fort Myers. We went to Siesta Key Beach. My uncle drove me over. It was a great day. I put on sunscreen in the morning, never reapplied, fell asleep. The rest of the weekend, I hated my life. I was burnt to a crisp, right? I wasn't asking anybody to feel bad for me. I was the moron that didn't reapply sunscreen in the Florida sun. The same goes in chilling temperatures. So a story comes out yesterday. I read it on USA Today. I don't know where it first dropped because I know it's in multiple avenues now. But I read a story in USA Today yesterday of fans who attended the Kansas City Chiefs Miami Dolphins playoff game that are now potentially going to have body parts amputated. Because there were morons who went to this game and did the whole, I'm not going to wear my shirt And I'm going to show them how tough I am. I'm not afraid of negative 9-degree Fahrenheit temperatures with wind chills that drop the feel of to negative 28, according to the article. People that attended that game now, due to the extreme cold, this from the story, dozens of fans suffered from frostbite and were transported to the hospital with hypothermia-related injuries, according to the Kansas City Fire Department spokesperson. According to a doctor who's a part of Nextstar's WDAF, I'm guessing that's the radio station out there, the medical director of the Grossman Burn Center in Kansas City, 70% of the patients admitted due to frostbite during the extreme cold weather have now been advised to undergo amputation. Dr. Garcia also said that 30% of the patients who had suffered from frostbite are dealing with ongoing health problems. This is now 2 months later. Obviously, as a human, I feel bad. But at the same time, like, what did you expect? Now, I would feel bad if there are people that need to potentially have a body part amputated that were bundled up. Like, you can't cover everything. You got to watch the game. So your nose may have been sticking out a little bit, right? And I understand not everybody wants to have their face covered at all times. But I'm going to guess that one of the morons that had their shirt off is probably one of the people that are dealing with health issues right now. Why do we do this, Ray? Why do we do this?
I don't know. I'm honestly squeamish thinking about this.
Like, imagine you're going to a football game, and I would, if I was at that game, I'd go double, maybe triple sock on each foot, right? I go with the I have like the long, like the joggers, the pants that are long, full pant joggers. I go that, long johns, pair of jeans over top. If I'm going the top, I'm going, I got the thermal on today, thermal, hoodie, and then maybe a big jacket over top of that. And then you go with this ski cap over top, if not more. The people that do that, I just need a sweatshirt, I'll be fine. Or I'm not going to wear a shirt so I can get on camera. Why?
I don't know. I was saying this to you and Tyrone. I went double sock the other night. I was trying to figure out when it was. I went to the Union game. And it was, must have been 30-something.
Right, 30-something you're going double sock.
What, almost 50, 60 degrees warmer than it was the real feel there that night. And I was, I mean, I don't mess around with that stuff. You mentioned the sun. Anyone that's ever seen my complexion, I burn basically as soon as the sun comes out. So, like, now that it's March and the sun's starting to reappear again, I'm in trouble. I don't mess with Mother Nature on that one. The human in me, like you said, empathetic, but it's like, what were you thinking?
Right.
What were you thinking? Like, you are not tougher than the elements. You have never been tougher than the elements, and you will never be. Why take that risk? Part of me, honestly, like, and I'll be a beta. You can call me whatever you want here.
Be a beta.
Call me whatever you want on this one. I love my teams. I saw how those ticket prices dropped, and you know how I feel about being there for postseason atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
I would have never gone.
You wouldn't have even gone.
No.
Interesting.
Maybe I'm not a real fan. I like sitting on my couch.
You might not be.
Yeah.
So
I might not be a real fan. I'll say it.
In the article, they write up the NFL's cold weather protocol. According to the NFL's game operations policy manual, the stadium must have a snow and ice removal plan before the scheduled game in cold or snowy weather. The manual goes on to say that if the weather dictates, heated benches must be available to both teams and active 2 hours prior to kickoff, so they're nice and warm. Nothing to do with the fans. The manual does not provide guidance on whether to postpone the game in dangerously cold weather or how fans should approach extreme temperatures. It is unclear if the NFL will review its cold weather policy after this season. I wonder. Now, I don't know if this would hold up in the court of law, but you know how, like, if you go to a baseball game on what used to be a ticket, it would say, like, and you see it on the big screen, like,
right.
Foul balls and bats flying into the stands. They're not. It's not on them.
Yeah, not our problem.
Yeah, not our problem. Like, you got to keep your eyes up, right? I don't know if there's anything about cold. I wonder if teams, security people start like saying, you know how like if you wear inappropriate shirts, they make you cover it. I wonder if you're not wearing a shirt when it's negative 20 degrees, if they start forcing people to wear shirts, which I can't believe we're even saying force you to wear shirts in cold weather. Because
People do it for the free gear. Show up shirtless. Oh, man, now you got to give me a jacket.
I don't think, are you allowed in without a shirt on? I think people,
I guess you have to put the shirt back on.
I would imagine
yeah.
people probably wear their clothes going into the game and then they take them off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have never, again, speaking of if you've ever seen me, if you ever see my body type, I am not the one that's kind of parading around shirtless. That's not really my MO. So I'm not really one with the world of, taking the clothes off at the game. So I don't know how that whole protocol goes. I don't know how you all decide when to do it, how to do it. Like, I'm not one to.
Well, you know what it is? I'm going to get on camera if I take my shirt off in this game.
Yeah, but I'm not a strip in the stands type of guy. So, I understand why people do it, but I'm kind of keeping myself all together. I'm keeping everything on.
You say you understand why they do it, but we really don't understand why they do it. Like, what is that 5 seconds of you on camera really going to do for you? Now, Dawood sends in Jason Kelce with the shirt off during the Chiefs and Bills game, and I think it's stupid. And I love Jason Kelce. I think it's dumb. Now, Jason Kelce also had a nice warm suite to jump back into.
Right.
The guy that's sitting front row at the 40-yard line has nowhere to escape the cold once the shirt comes off. And now 70% of the people that went to some sort of hospital or somewhere in the Kansas City area after that game are being advised to get a body part amputated. My PSA, you're not stronger than the cold, and you're not stronger than the sun. Wear sunscreen when it's hot. And wear freaking clothes when it's cold out, and don't try to be stronger. I can handle it. It's all right. Like, this isn't a alpha beta thing. It's not. Just go to the game, be loud, and keep yourself comfortable.
Make it, if it's an alpha beta thing, I'm a beta. Let me be that. I don't care. You want to start with that? You want to start getting tough man on me? You know what? I'm cool. I'll be warm.
All right. Sounds good. All right, let's go back to the phone. Let's go to Andy in Lambertville. Andy, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, happy Friday, guys.
Happy Friday.
Boy, that story's brutal. Oof.
Yeah, but and I feel bad because I'm a human. But at the same time, I don't, because I remember ripping them leading up to the game and after the game. And now, 2 months later, we're getting stories that people need to have body parts amputated. Like, what did you expect? It was a negative 28-degree wind chill.
I mean, you said they want to get on TV. There's got to be a bunch of beers involved, too, of course.
Yeah, probably.
But I was the guy that called yesterday.
Yep, I remember.
And so I wanted to say how sometimes things change over time. Well, first of all, if CJ were to come back, the second he picks off his first pass, nobody's going to give a darn what he said about, whatever.
Right.
But about 15 years ago, I'm living in Los Angeles, so I'll make it quick. I met Steve. And he was a regular at my restaurant. So
you met who?
Finally,
you dropped.
Terrell Owens.
Okay.
T.O.
Yeah, you dropped out. All right.
So I'm talking to him one day, and I said, you know what? I was at that Jacksonville Super Bowl, and you were the best player on the field, and I'm a big fan, and this and that. And he is all smiles, his big T.O. smile. And as soon as I mentioned that I was an Eagles season ticket holder, I mean, the smile vanished. And it was hilarious. He kind of like, he got on guard or whatever. I don't think he really loved Philadelphia when he left, but just last week or so, you probably heard on that podcast that he was on, and he was asked whether he liked San Francisco or Dallas, whether he liked playing in those cities better, and without prompt,
he picked Philly. Yep.
So I mean, Gardner Johnson, if he were to be signed, it's something that he might have said. Well, he did say it, but he who really cares? I don't think it's something we got to hold against him. He comes back and starts making plays. That's all we want, right?
Yeah. So you've noticed a change in the fan base, I would imagine.
I have. I was I still am, but I was back to the Veteran Stadium where there was no women and children allowed. I mean, there was guys fighting each other.
Right.
And peeing in the concourse, and I mean it was.
Yeah, we were barbaric at times, so I'm glad that stuff's changed. But I'm saying our feeling toward players has changed too. It depends on who we're talking about, but is it a good thing?
I think it's a case-by-case basis, and nowadays, especially with the social media stuff, is so prevalent when that wasn't the case years ago, like my father's generation and his father's day. So you never even heard it, but I guarantee if you could poll former Philadelphia athletes without them having to give their name, they would most of them would probably say that the fans are a little annoying and obnoxious. But
absolutely.
They would say that probably because, and we would say as fans that no, it's passion, and because we care more than most fans around the country.
Right, yeah, exactly. And thanks for the call, Andy. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, look, that is part of it. The people believing that we're obnoxious, right?
Passionate.
Yeah, passionate.
There's a spin you can make on every little thing. We're not obnoxious. We're just passionate.
We're just passionate.
We care more.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you to run the ball because I'm smarter than you. We're an educated fan base, right?
Now you lost me. We are an educated fan base, so I'll agree with the second sentence.
Oh, man. All right, you better watch out.
Listen, you can come out here with signs with run the ball. Right. Okay, I'll walk right past you. Give me a break. Run the ball.
Let's go to Joe in Bethlehem. Joe, you're on the Fanatic.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's up, Joe?
Not much. As far as, the fan base getting soft thing, obviously that's true. We're definitely getting much softer than what we previously were, and everybody's, go-to for that is the Super Bowl complacency, which I do agree kind of had something to do with it. But, honestly, the reason for, selective criticism of players, I think mostly is derivative of fear. You know how, we constantly mention how, Jalen's on this pedestal where he's kind of,
oh, he can't get touched, man.
I think it's out of fear because we invested this money in him and everything else, and if he's really not that franchise quarterback,
but why is it different from literally 3 years ago when people were ready to move Wentz out of town?
Well, exactly, because, I think it was the comfortability factor with Nick Foles as far as the whole Carson Wentz thing goes, and then we draft Jalen Hurts. He's a second-round pick. It's cheap money, so there wasn't a huge investment there. But now, if Hurts isn't that guy, we're looking at kind of dark ages again for the.
Oh yeah, we'd be in trouble.
So I just think that kind of has a lot to do with it. And,
okay.
As far as our off-season moves, splashes, I don't know if I ever I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I kind of want bigger splashes to be made defensively because I think that's where obviously we need it most.
Yeah.
But the whole Saquon thing, at the price that Saquon would cost us, I would much prefer to retain DeAndre Swift and bring in, this is going to be unpopular, but bring in a Zeke Elliott.
Yeah, the question is how much is Swift going to get paid, right? This is his chance to get a big payday. And, as a guy that's from the area, I'm rooting for him to get paid. I just don't want the Eagles to be the team paying him.
If you can bring him in for $6 million,
no,
would you keep him?
I'm not giving him $6 million. Because he's not playing all that much, right? They love their Kenneth Gainwell, right? If you pay Saquon Barkley, and thanks for the call, Joe. If you pay Saquon Barkley, it's the Saquon show, right? In terms of the backfield, Kenny G would still get his snaps. The Eagles themselves showed you they weren't totally in love with Swift at all times. So why would you bring in a guy at $6 million who's not going to play as much as he probably should at $6 million? Right?
They pay a running back, and they use him similarly to the way they have used running backs in the past.
It'd be a waste of money.
Yes, which is why the running back position is not one that they will invest in, which is why they shouldn't go and do this. I feel like this conversation continues in a circle for me. It's the amount of money you're paying for how many touches per game. And, okay, if you end up paying the guy and then you make him the bell cow, for example, Swift, you pay him to be the bell cow. There's been two different organizations where that hasn't been the total role for him.
Right.
You'd be asking him
to do
25 touches per game. Is that something he can get to an end of his season, end of a contract?
Right.
Continuously doing that. Saquon. And Swift is on the younger side of this market, too. The one thing that I keep coming back to, obviously the names that are out there, Barkley, Jacobs, I think there's going to be a team that looks at DeAndre Swift and says, well, look at how young he is. and look at some of the other guys on the market, maybe we'll get him at a deal that we think makes more sense for us, that we wouldn't be able to get another year, where he gets that 7, where he gets that 8 per year. You know, Miles Sanders' money is just over 6 per year. I think you can build a running back room and pay the entire room $6 million per year.
And we also saw Miles Sanders get $6 million a year, and it completely blow up in the face of the Carolina Panthers this past year.
That's true.
The point where Chuba Hubbard ended up playing more.
Yes, they wanted Deontay Foreman back,
and more
as they should have,
more effectively. Let's go to Soulless Ryan. What's up, Ryan?
Gentlemen, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, man.
Damn right. So, like, real quick, shirts off in cold weather. One word, and it's a simple answer. It's called alcohol.
No, it's called idiotic.
Well, alcohol. Alcohol can make you do some dumb stuff.
It can. It's a good point.
Warm, you get all warm inside, and you want to do something stupid.
I just don't get it. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, you're taking that. I don't want to take my sweatshirt off when it's too cold outside. And yet there's people that, and you know what it is. It's not just stupidity. It's also like, I want to get on camera.
Oh, you know what's funny? That it's real. I remember when I was like younger. Peyton, the Colts were in town, and I told my dad, I'm like, you wear double socks. I told him, like, this is what you need to do. And he didn't. And in, like, the middle of the third, he's like, I'm freezing.
Yeah.
I wanted to kill him. I'm like, I told you. But, you know, my dad, you know, he's a little bit older. I was like, all right, fine, man. Like, you know, let's go. But, nah, dude, so, like, the whole, like, sports dynamic right now, like, I think, you know, the Phillies, I think they're going to make a splash. Somehow I think they're going to get, either, was it Montgomery?
Montgomery and Snell are the two names.
Yeah. I don't think Montgomery's going to get the money or the duration that he's going to get. And I think, what's the other dude? I'm sorry, Snell?
Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have a hunch that we're going to make a splash with one of those two guys. Somehow it's going to work in our favor. You know, the Flyers, I mean, dude, they're making splashes, but it's not through acquisitions necessarily. It's just like moving forward. And now the Eagles, if we are going to make a splash, we got to focus on defense, man, because our offense was pretty solid given, you know, how crappy it was. But yet, what were we in, like the top 10 or something like that? So, I mean, the offense is in a good spot. And now, you know, with the new offensive coordinator, I think we're going to be a good spot. But the team that's going to not make a splash, like Reggie Brown said, you know, like a turd. The Sixers, dude, they are in such bad shape right now, man.
Well, I mean, and they can't do anything about it at this point, right? Like,
no, but could you imagine if we had to sign? It's like no one wants to come here. Oh my God, you know, who wants to play with an injured Embiid? You know, it sucks to say it, but it's kind of like, you know, reality. Could you imagine if we had to sign Tobias Harris again? I would jump off a bridge.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, Ryan. I appreciate the call. I don't think – I did say it earlier this year. I would not watch if Tobias Harris came back. I'm a
casual.
Big Sixers fan, man. Can't do it anymore. Please, Daryl. I can't do it anymore. Let's get through the rest of this year. Yeah, that would suck if nobody wants to come here and they're like, oh, well, we need to fill up the spot anyway. Tobias, you want to come back? I think, honestly, dude, I don't think I'd be the only one. I think people would turn it off if Tobias Harris came back again.
Well, there's things that have to happen before Tobias Harris is a free agent, and I'm sure some of that might turn people away already.
Yeah.
There might be some people tuned out. Disappointingly so. The one thing
surprise, no Embiid news yet? We were told next week, last Tuesday. It's Friday.
No. Surprised.
Woj said it.
Surprised? Okay, surprised maybe yes. I'm surprised we haven't heard more.
Even if it was
not
just
yet concerned.
Okay. Because even if it was just the reevaluated thing. Like, starting to get worried about the news dump.
Oh, you think like today? Like while I'm sitting having my airport beer?
It's 1:15 on Friday. You know? Sorry, a little worried.
Okay, so you're starting to get concerned.
I haven't heard anything.
Listen, I'm not saying you're wrong to be concerned. I'm saying I haven't gotten there yet.
I'm just like, I'm surprised we haven't even gotten the, all right, well, there's going to be another evaluation next week.
He was, he talked to me, what was it, a week ago today?
Yeah. He said he's going to do whatever he can to come back, which I'm taking his word for it. I don't know. By the
Maybe
way,
they feel like that handled our needs for Embiid.
maybe. Yeah, but it's still Woj. Like, he's going to put
I'm
something
not
out
saying
there.
Woj is wrong. I'm just saying I'm not necessarily finding myself hitting the panic button right now.
All right. By the way, Joey Votto just agreed to a non-roster invite to the Blue Jays. To Toronto. That's a good little squad.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't have to be an everyday player anymore.
No, he doesn't have to be an everyday player anymore. He's going to look weird at anything that's not Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
So I think that's more my brain. I just saw him in the Blue Jays uniform. Good for him, though. Yeah, good for him. I don't know how many people in this world can tweet out, wow, sucks not having a job, and just have a job 48 hours later.
Yeah, it must be nice.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool, thing to have.
Okay, so we got another segment left on this beautiful Friday. During the final segment, I'm going to do something kind of random. But I was watching ESPN yesterday, which is something I haven't really done because I don't just really have the time to sit down and watch ESPN as much right now. And there was a local story being talked about. So what I want to do during the final segment, with all the sports talk that we have, I want you to think back to your high school days. And what was the story that happened at your high school that was national news? Now, let's try to keep it, appropriate, because mine is extremely inappropriate, which I won't even I'll tell you during the break. I'm not even going to say it on the air. It was horrible. You could look up my high school. You'll probably be able to find it. But what was the story from your high school that made national headlines? Because there was one in Jersey that we talked about earlier this week that's now being talked about on ESPN. I'll tell you what that is next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Myers win at the end. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by Bradford White Water Heaters. When you need a new water heater, choose one that's built to be the best. Choose Bradford White. Massive win for the Flyers last night over the Florida Panthers.
For us here on the Midday Show, I'm Andrew Salchunas here, 97.5 The Fanatic. On a Fanatic Friday, presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys to know to fix your flow in our 1 o'clock hour. Brought to us by Ferguson HVAC Line Conklin. Attention HVAC contractors for equipment, parts, supplies for every heating and cooling job. Visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Ben Salem, King of Prussia, Pennsauken, or Westchester. A couple things before I get to this high school thing that I was telling you about going up to the break. 2 things I saw on social media during the commercial break. One, that will make our our brain cells just diminish. So I'll get to that one second. Because it was just one of the dumbest things I ever heard.
Oh, great.
But, not surprising from the source.
Oh, no.
The other, this one's interesting, from John Heyman. Rumors of the Mets' interest in signing Juan Soto during his upcoming free agency are, quote, getting louder. So here's the deal. Is this the Mets are actually in on Juan Soto? Because obviously they need to get back to relevancy. They've just been a joke. Or is this a tactic for the Phillies to really go after him? Because remember, Heyman definitely works with Boris pretty closely in terms of what he puts out there information-wise. And at the trade deadline last year, or leading up to the trade deadline last year, John Heyman put out this weird report about the Phillies going after Juan Soto. And I remember clicking on the link thinking he was going to tell us that the Phillies were going to try to trade for Juan Soto. And then the story ended up being about after his final year with the Padres, because, he then since got traded to the Yankees. But after his final year with the Padres, the Phillies would land him in free agency because it's on the East Coast, which is closer to home for him. The connection with Bryce Harper, Trey Turner. I mean, if you remember, he went to a Dodgers game wearing a Dodgers Trey Turner jersey in support of his friend. And Kevin Long, hitting coach. And, oh, by the way, John Middleton's wallet, right? That's probably a big part of it, too. Is this a tactic to try to get the Phillies to jump, or do you think the Mets are actually in on him? I mean, they'd be dumb if they weren't in on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is probably more absolutely in on him. Hey, spend a year in New York. You like it here? Guess we'll break the bank for you. Because remember, when they started selling off the pieces, it was like, yeah, we're looking forward a couple of years.
They were looking for it. Scherzer said that, right? When he signed with the Rangers.
That they were starting to look ahead. Soto is a piece that you can look ahead to for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine I don't know if this is just smoke to upset people. I think this is probably something real.
I know I'll be disappointed if the Phillies don't get him, and I'll be even more disappointed if he goes to the Mets. Like, I'd be legitimately distraught because I already had to deal with him in the division. Now he's just going to go to the Mets. I would not like that. I would not be fond of it.
No, I would be.
So what? Schwarber's got 2 years left, right?
This is year 3 of
4-year
Schwarber,
contract. So this year, next year, 2 years left. Castellanos is 3. Dude, I want Juan Soto bad. He plays first base. Harper's at first base now. You move one of the two, Castellanos or Schwarber. You have Soto out in right field.
I like that. Like that a lot.
Yeah, I'd be fond of it. All right, something to keep an eye on. The other thing I saw during the break. Now, this goes back to what I talked about earlier. So earlier today, we played you a clip from Mike Lombardi, who said the Eagles should trade for Justin Fields to not just back up Jalen Hurts, but to literally run plays where they're on the field at the same time. Like, what are we doing here? And I joked around about it, but I was kind of serious. Like, we should revisit the Second Amendment. No, which amendment was free speech? First Amendment? I should know these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, Second Amendment would be the one with guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the whole free speech thing, we got to revisit this because, as I said earlier, I don't believe there are sports hot takes back then. So sports hot takes should now be against the Constitution, and people should be either jailed for the things that they say, or as you said, you had a great point. The people that get money for their social media posts, they should be fined for their ridiculous takes. I can't believe, but I also can believe, that there is somebody that has a problem with the Anthony Edwards block from last night. Did you see the block?
Yes. Amazing. Last minute of play for him was amazing.
It won the game, right? The block won the game.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards blocks a layup where he hits his head on the backboard. That's how high he got up for the block. He gets up so high for the block, hits his head on the backboard. He himself, during his post-game press conference, says it's the highest he's ever jumped in his life. And Skip Bayless has a problem with how people are reacting to it. Shocker. Quote, easiest block you'll ever see. He believes the reaction to it is overrated. Because if he didn't block it, one of the other players on the Timberwolves would have blocked it because there are a lot of white jerseys in the area. He believes the shot was going to be missed if he didn't block the shot. So what was the point of it? He should be arrested for that take. But of course he hasn't. Everybody's celebrating the block today. It was incredible. An incredible feat of athleticism, and Skip Bayless has to say it's the easiest block you'll ever see.
Now, I want to put him in a bind here. I'll ask him whether or not the LeBron block of Iguodala.
Well, he hates LeBron. So.
Right. So he would have to choose between the two.
Oh, you'd have to pick between the two. Okay.
Because that's a big moment for LeBron. LeBron can't have big moments. Skip, I've seen the stories on how the new Undisputed and the post-Shannon era is going.
Yeah, it's not doing too well.
No, it's not going too hot for him. This is, I mean, the career of some crazy takes. This one's just maybe leave this one alone.
I just don't get it.
There doesn't always have to be an alternative
sometimes
perspective.
We don't have to have a take.
Or just say it was great.
Just say it was great. And talk about it for 2 minutes.
Talk about what the Timberwolves are going to do without Karl Anthony Towns now.
Right. Instead of talking about how that block was overrated. It was the, quote, easiest block ever. Get the hell out of here,
Galaxy
man.
brain and things you don't need the galaxy brain.
It's crazy. Now, all right, so yesterday, I was out to eat. Very, very big day in the South Tunis household yesterday. Cooper graduated from NICU follow-up because, after he spent his time in the NICU, every once in a while he had to do a follow-up to see that he's progressing in the right direction. So Cooper graduated. He got a nice little certificate. They gave him a little hat, a little paper graduation cap. So it was a great day yesterday for Christy and Cooper and I. So we decided to go out to eat afterward. It was like, it was done at 4 o'clock. So we just went to a local establishment back to where we live. And so we're sitting there, and, it's kind of a sports bar, so there's every sports network is on. And Around the Horn was on. I used to love that show as a kid. Around the Horn and Pete, they're back to back, right?
Yeah, it was that stretch that used to go, oh my God, Levitard's show. What was
Highly Questionable?
Highly Questionable, thank you. It was the Highly Questionable.
I did not
Around
like
the
that.
Horn.
Did not like that show.
You did not like that show?
Didn't do it for me.
Wow. That was like an elite hour and a half of TV for me.
I did not like it.
I loved going down that stretch, especially the end. Poppy,
did it?
Yep, I knew.
I'm sorry. Can I say?
I figured.
Hated it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun, so I figured it was going to be a problem for you.
I could not wait for that show to end.
Yeah, that's
when
just
that part happened, I would normally go walk away somewhere or change the channel and wait for the next. It was so annoying.
Look at this thing that's fun that people enjoy.
Who enjoyed it?
A lot of people. You know how long that show was on the air?
Anyways.
He's now doing his own thing.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's cool. Good for him. I love it.
It's a good God. Look at this fun father-son duo having their moment, enjoying
just didn't
sports
do it.
television.
Didn't do it.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Keep moving.
I wasn't the biggest Levitar, and look, I respect him. Dude, congratulations to him when his network got picked up. I think it was DraftKings. Like he made the bag, man. Good for him. But yeah, around the horn, and then it was pardon the interruption, and like that was like you said. I mean, I was living, and then it would go to 6 o'clock Sports Center. Right, so it would even be more than an hour and a half for you because
you could do it. Yeah, you have a nice 2 hours, pretty much programming there.
Yeah, so I haven't watched those shows, and I can't tell you how long. I don't have cable anymore. I do have Hulu Live, so like I could put on ESPN, but like too many steps. And by the way, I'm kind of busy chasing around a little kid, so I'm not really watching these shows anymore. My television viewing has become sports or whatever Christy might want to watch at night. So I'm watching Around the Horn, and they brought up the Manasquan Camden thing, and they were talking about it. And my first thought was, I still feel terrible for the Manasquan kids. The audio was off, so I was telling Christy about it. Christy believes that I don't know. Did Camden put out a statement or anything? I haven't seen anything. I haven't really bothered looking it up, but she believes that they should make a statement, which probably makes sense. But then again, like they have a championship game to get ready for on Saturday now.
Is she looking for, like, that commercial?
That was the first thing I thought of. I touched the ball, Coach. That was the first thing I freaking thought about. But it made me think, like, all right, so these high schools made national news. Was there ever a time where your high school made national news?
So right now, it's kind of a national thing because I think he's the #1 prospect in all of Pennsylvania for high school football, or one of the top prospects. The quarterback for my high school, who's
really?
actually like a family friend, is like offered from Georgia, offered from Penn State, offered from So he's like the national story. I was trying to rack my brain for anything that like compares to this. But I mean,
no, it doesn't have to compare to this. I'm just saying, like, you're watching TV and like your school's being talked about.
It's more of a right now. Like I go on my timeline and it's like college football people that like I respect and follow because I enjoy like reading about what they're reporting on and stuff, and they're like are mentioning his name as like a key target, and it's like whoa, I remember when that kid was like 12. I remember when that kid was like 10. Like he was not top line prospect news, and now I see, he's getting interviewed here. This Penn State site's writing about him, this Georgia site. Like, seeing a picture of him in a Georgia uniform, like, on the visit.
Kind of cool.
Kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of, like, I think it was, he also has an offer from Pitt, and Pitt's head football coach was, like, at a high school basketball game to watch him, like, to support. Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
That's been wild for me. So that's the only thing that nationally sticks out. We're not exactly known for pumping out the national stories. We kind of do our thing. And
like I had one that was really bad that I forgot to tell you during the break.
Well, I was trying to record this update. I can't speak
so
today.
I'm not going to say that one on the air. But if you looked up, Clearview Regional High School, you would probably figure it had nothing to do with the school. It was a student. So my high school was great. It was a student that made national news. So you can look that. It was horrible. But was there ever a time where your high school made national news? Because I can only imagine, because I know what I did in high school. I would get home and I would put on ESPN. I don't know if kids are doing that these days, back in my day.
They're scrolling their timeline.
But you're right. But I'm watching ESPN and boom, my school's being talked about and Around the Horn. That's kind of cool, even though it wasn't for the best reasoning because Manasquan got robbed in that game. They did get robbed. And it's kind of weird that the association that you somehow know off the top of your head.
You just start putting letters together. Was it NJSIAA?
Yes.
New Jersey. State. It's a state.
That's true.
Interscholastic.
True. Interscholastic.
Yeah, so you're talking about inside the school or whatever that actually means.
Athletic association.
Athletic association. I mean, come on. I'm not that smart.
It's just crazy. They said, yes, the call was incorrect. No, we can't do anything about it.
Well, it'd be major gaslighting if they were like, no, the call was correct. Like,
yes, it's true.
You can't, with all that evidence in your face, you can't just double down and be like, no, they got the call correct. Like, you got to realize the call was wrong.
I wonder if that rule starts to change with today's media, right? Because that's the thing. That game was on stream because Camden High is a very good basketball program.
So this was something I was actually talking to a friend of mine who covers like high school and college hoops down in the Baltimore area. We were talking on the phone yesterday about the situation, and he said something similar to that, and my mind immediately went to, okay, yes, when you're in the state playoffs, a lot of these are live streamed and carried. And maybe it is a sole provider. I don't know how. I know Pennsylvania charges like an arm and a leg to you do the live streaming, so it's usually bigger companies that are doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what New Jersey is with that. But if you set that rule in place, is it for just the state playoffs? Because then there's a team that during the regular season could say they were robbed. Their seating could be changed.
Yeah.
And plus, if you don't have a consistent network doing each game, you have different camera quality, different camera angles. And, who's to say this one being robbed versus that? Like, you start to get into a lot of, like, if it's only the in-house high school that's doing it versus this is a, online network doing it.
It's just because this is so much different. Like, 20 years ago, before you're streaming high school basketball games, you just got to you'd hate the referee for the rest of your life because you'd be telling the story of, I swear
or
it was
a picture that comes
we
out
literally
later.
have visual evidence that Manasquan got robbed in this game. It's there. There's not one person from Camden that could say, no. Okay, you're full of it. The shot didn't go in time. No, we know that it went in. I wonder if that rule ever changed. But like you said, there's a million things that they have to do in order to put those rules in place. So was there ever a time your high school made national news? Now, Al Fisher checks in before I get back to the phone, 610-632-0975. We were talking about DeAndre Swift. He said if $6 million per year is too much for Swift, how much are you willing to pay Barkley? He's going to command $10 million a year. I'll take Swift at $6 million per than Barkley at $10 million. If I don't get Barkley, I'm not going after Swift. I'll go back into the $2 million range or draft a rookie or trade for a guy in the final year of his deal. Saquon Barkley gets $10 million because he's Saquon Barkley. With all due respect to DeAndre Swift, he's not a guy to me that I'm going to give $6 million a year to. I hope he gets it from somewhere.
I'm not messing around with either one of them.
Local kid. I want him to get it somewhere.
It just humanity, get your money. Yeah, like nothing against you getting paid, but if we're talking about
you're
this
saying
local football
you're saying you're not messing around with any of them, but Barkley at 10 or Swift at 6, if you had to pick.
I told you no on both accounts.
If you have to pick one or the other.
Oh my!
You just said if you made Skip Bayless pick between LeBron or Anthony Edwards, he would have to pick.
Fine,
Barkley
less money to the running back room. $6 million for DeAndre Swift.
I'd go Barkley 10. If I had to pick between the two, I'd go Barkley 10. Let's go to Rich in New Jersey. What's up, Rich? Hello, Rich. Let's put Rich on hold. Try to get back to him. Let's go to Tasty Cake Dom. What's up, Dommy?
Hey, Andrew. Hey, Ray. You guys are talking about high school so proudly, and Tyrone can verify this. I'm from Pennsauken High School, and we had 5 guys in the same genre make the NFL in the same time period in high school.
Oh, wow.
They actually did a special on that on ESPN.
Well, that's cool.
And so that, we were a little, and you could also throw the vice president of the New York Knicks was on that team as well.
Ah.
So that was
he's an important man in the NBA.
He's an important man in the NBA. And David Griggs and Billy Griggs, Andrew, were 5 years apart. So when I was a sophomore, Billy Griggs was a senior. And then when I was a senior, David Griggs was a sophomore. So they missed each other for a year. But those there were 5 guys that were in the NFL at the same time period.
Wow, that's amazing.
From Pennsauken High School. It is pretty amazing.
Yeah. All right. So that would make national news. Tommy, I love your opinion. How do you feel about what happened between Manasquan and Camden?
I think that it's a shame.
Well, no, obviously it's a shame.
But if you want to go, Camden has had a shady history forever, right, Andrew? I mean, Billy Thompson, who went to the NFL, had no business going to Camden High. He lived in Runnymede. He did. He should have went to Triton. I mean, everybody knows that. He used his grandmother's address. So Camden has been the benefit of some shady dealings for a while now.
So maybe it may have been a shady decision there at the end.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
That happens in games, right? I mean, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but
I can't believe it. Thanks for the call, Dommy. I appreciate it. I can't believe that happened, man. Sucks. Is this true? I didn't even know that he was doing this. Hold on, Ray. It is. If you're Isaiah Thomas, when do you call it quits?
Oh, you just got the Isaiah Thomas 32 points in the G League debut?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. That happened.
I feel bad. But he's not the first one. Didn't Baron Davis play for the Blue Coats? And then Nate Robinson?
Oh, I mean, a lot of these players are trying to extend the career down there. You'd be surprised the number of names you recognize in the G League. You know, he wants to do it, man. If you want to keep playing, you want to keep playing. Someone's going to hand you a contract. I'd take it.
Well, how much money? You can't be making all that much money down there.
Contract's a contract, man.
I get it. I just feel it just gets to the point. Like sometimes, like the Jason.
He dropped 32 points. I guarantee he got paid more than you and I today.
That's probably true. Like the Jason Peters thing. Like after a while, you're like, you start feeling bad, don't you?
Yeah, but I think it's like the G League. I understand like the idea of him coming back and being a contributor to a playoff team, like far-fetched. So yeah, like from that perspective of it, okay. G League, if he's going to drop 30 and continue with the I deserve my opportunity, hey, go ahead, do your thing, drop 30. You know, have your moment out in the sun there. I'm not really that bothered by it. It is interesting to see him keep trying it. It's cool to see him actually on the floor versus the whole, hey, I'm available if you need me. Like he's done the Joey Votto thing a number of times, but it's been 2 days have gone by and it's been like,
right.
Am I going to retweet this to make sure that people saw it?
Yeah. That's pretty sad.
And it does sound like whatever happened in Boston is not great. Yeah, dealing there was not great.
All right, I'm gonna hold on before we do our daily tie of the bow at the end of the show. I hope when I talk about this, people know what I'm talking about. Have you seen the photo that's been circulating around NBA Twitter?
I will go to my timeline because I don't think I've seen anything that no. Oh yeah, that one. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I saw that.
It was a photo of Steph Curry after making a shot. He celebrated by doing the fake golf swing, which all guys being dudes do, right? But the eyes went to the background of the photo because there's a fan. And she's standing and celebrating. And, you know, your eyes start to wander sometimes, especially the guy in front.
So that's how I initially saw the picture with someone zoomed in. That was the first I saw it on my timeline. Then you can't see the picture the same.
This poor dude.
He's having rough conversations.
He's sitting front row with what looks like, with two kids. I don't know if one, you know, or I can't tell if it's, I think it's two kids. And everybody's making the joke of, oh, man, his wife's going to see this picture of him turning around and eyeballing the fan behind him. I did not notice something. The NBA Twitter account, the official NBA Twitter account, posted the photo and photoshopped her out of it. Why?
Keep the focus on the game. I don't know.
Well, come on, man. Like, we're all human here.
Right. But the NBA, I guess, is, you know, trying to, maybe they want the Steph Curry golf thing to be like, oh, yeah, it's something that catches on. People think is fun, cool. And they don't want that to be the side distraction.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, any way to get eyes to the game?
Why, you know, anybody could be a fan.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Listen.
No matter how they look.
Listen, I don't know if there were a lot of people complaining. It seems like just an NBA thing.
No, absolutely not. Nobody was complaining.
So, yeah, no, it was an interesting night of things that went viral. I forgot about that. So
Yeah, that was a big one. All right. So, we got
tying a bow on the show.
We got some news. Go ahead. I would imagine we can hit it.
Breaking sports news from 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
All right, so Anthony DeMarco, who covers the Flyers, covers the NHL. He covers but he does a lot of Flyers stuff. I know he's also on the Stick to Hockey podcast with you know, our buddy Jason Martinez. Anthony tweeting out, he's been told that the Flyers have traded Wade Allison. It was then quote tweeted by Elliot Friedman, who says, believe this is to Nashville. And Charlie O'Connor has since retweeted that. So it looks like Wade Allison on his way out from the orange and black for that Denis Gurianov, obviously.
Of course.
That was the guy on my list that I wanted the Flyers to go after.
I did remember. You put a list school together, right? It's on 97.5thefanatic.com. 27 targets for the Flyers at the deadline.
Yeah.
He was what, number 22?
Dennis Gurianov was definitely up there. 26-year-old, left-handed shot, man. So that's a big part of it. Former first-round pick back in 2015 when Dallas selected him. And he's been with Nashville this year. He's played 14 games and has scored a goal and an assist.
Well, look forward to him scoring a second very soon.
At some point this year. The trade deadline coming your way at 3 o'clock. So that'll be happening during the best show ever. So keep an eye on it. Like I said, I think the Flyers can be sellers and still make the playoffs. Still believe it. And we'll see if they end up moving on from Scott Lawn or not. That's going to be the big one because there's been enough smoke surrounding Scott Lawn at some point being traded. Even after they put the A on the sweater, a lot of people also thought that could have been a bargaining tactic. Like, put the A on the sweater. Look how important this guy is. You have to pay up even more. So the trade deadline coming your way at 3 o'clock. We'll see what the Flyers end up doing. All right.
Season's over for the Phillies. Bryce Harper struck out.
Yeah, season's over.
Yep. They're beating the Astros 3-0, so big revenge game here.
JT Realmuto with an RBI single, by the way.
Yeah, and I think he just got a single again. I turned to look to you, now Stott's batting, and there's man on first. So it looks like he did that again.
It's hitting
Good
season.
for JT.
Hitting
And the
season,
Stubbs
man.
brothers in this game today.
So,
yep, want to make sure we got that in before the end of the show. Go ahead, Tybo.
I'm glad you were able to do that. All right, so, yeah, we talked about what you would rather do, the Eagles do, have the splashy, fun offseason or stick with what's worked. The poll got even closer. 52% fun and splashy, 48% said stick with what works. That poll's still running on the Midday account, 975 Middays. And Mike Lombardi should be behind bars. That was another thing that we got into because he believes the Eagles should trade for Justin Fields so they could run 2 quarterback sets. Can you play it one more time? Here's Mike Lombardi on whatever podcast he was on, just speaking nonsense into existence.
There seems to be not a lot of momentum. I mean, we saw that video that moved the market, Femi, of him jumping up and down. Everybody said, well, that must be Atlanta's involved. But I talked to a lot of people that were at the Combine, and I can't find a team. If I were Philly, I would trade for him. Because I think if you put him behind Hurts and run this 6-back offense with him, he might go in there and play good.
Is he actually serious when he says that? Part of me hopes he's joking. Because if he's actually serious about that, if Skip Bayless actually thinks Anthony Edwards' block last night was overrated, we really need to revisit the Constitution. And we need to start putting, more stuff in place about free speech. Because it's starting to get a little bit insane. Like, we need to add another layer to the Constitution when it comes to sports talk. I truly believe it. Because if people aren't actually speaking truthfully, you're basically lying to people. Like, that should be addressed. Right?
Yes. I've long said that the one thing we need to look at with the Constitution is how sports talk relates to it. So I'm glad that we were able to establish that.
Well, I mean, that's our avenue.
That is our avenue.
I'm not doing politics stuff because that's not what I talk about. I talk about sports for a living.
I didn't get political there. I just said that's what I've long said.
I saw your tweet. We got a home run?
Yeah, Bryson Stott just hit a homer. I caught that one, so I figured I'd fire off the tweet. It's good to fire off those tweets again.
The ring it? Yeah.
The ring it's got me ready to go. I'm not necessarily prepared for running the contest again for the summer, but we will do it again. So looking forward to that, too.
And it looks like another move. Eric Johnson, not former program director, 97.5 The Fanatic, is heading to Philadelphia per Elliot Friedman. So the best show ever coming your way next. All of a sudden, it's getting really excited with the trade deadline. Next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Sports Update.
Flyers win in Florida. I'm Ray Dunn. This update is brought to you by the BetParks app. When you open the BetParks app, you're in the zone. It's all your favorite casino games at your fingertips. Plus, new users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. BetParks must be 21 in PA or New Jersey. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Massive win for the Flyers in Florida against the Panthers. Game tied 1-1 with 21.3 seconds to go in the third period. Garnet Hathaway had the winner.
Hathaway back to Cates. Magnet left point. Stall with a shot. Deflected right on the rebound. They score! Oh, what a play. Garnet Hathaway gives the